I stood outside my son's penthouse door, holding hot chicken stew after my fourth job of the day. For 3 years, I had worked 5 jobs, sending him every spare dollar because he claimed debt was destroying him. Then I heard laughter inside. "The old man is proud of working 5 jobs," my son scoffed. "That's just proof of a failed life. Let him keep sending money. At least he's still useful." The whole room erupted in laughter. Right then, I knew I had to learn what was really going on. This is the story of a father whose trust became a weapon used against him. Welcome back to Silent Sweet Revenge, a place where real pain meets real justice, and the truth always finds its way to the surface. If stories like this one stay with you, I'd be glad if you hit subscribe and gave it a like. It means more than you know. Before we get into it, I want to ask you something. When someone wrongs you deeply, do you believe in speaking up right away, or do you think silence and patience are the sharper weapons? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone. A quick note. Some elements of this story have been shaped for audio storytelling, and any resemblance to specific individuals is coincidental. What matters is the truth at the heart of it. The name is Gerald Calloway, 67 years old, and the hardest lesson this life has taught me is that a man can love someone so completely he forgets to ask whether that someone deserves it. But I am getting ahead of myself. The morning unfolded the way mornings have unfolded for 3 years running, 4:15 a.m. Still dark outside. My body does not need an alarm anymore. The routine has carved itself into my bones deeper than any amount of fatigue can reach. I swung my legs over the side of the bed in the modest 2-bedroom I keep in Hyde Park, a neighborhood where the houses lean slightly into the earth and people mind their own business. Knees popped, back flared. Neither mattered. I stopped at the nightstand before heading out the way I always do. Dorothea's photo is there in a plain wooden frame. She is 43 in the picture, caught mid-laugh over something. I said her face lit from the inside. 11 years gone now. Cancer moved fast. I slid the nightstand drawer open. The letter she wrote me 3 days before she passed is in there, folded into quarters. The envelope worn to velvet from how many times my fingers have found it in the dark. I have never broken the seal. It is not that I forgot. I am just not ready for whatever truth she left inside. I close the drawer and get on with it. 5 jobs, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is what my life has looked like for 3 years now. It started when my son Darius, 38 years old, Princeton educated, a mind like a scalpel, showed up with red eyes and told me his company was going under. $180,000 in the hole. A supplier dispute that went sideways, he explained. Creditors closing in. He needed me, Dad, just to get through it. I cashed out my retirement the following week. Still not enough. So the jobs began. First one, overnight security at a downtown office tower, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Desk monitors, 2 floor walks per shift. Second, delivery driver, 6 a.m. to noon. Boxes up staircases, Cincinnati's streets in every kind of weather, smiling at people who look right through me. Third, hardware store clerk, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Restocking shelves, fielding questions about drill bits, willing my hands to stay steady. Fourth, grocery stocking, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Same fluorescent hum, same heavy lifting, different store. Fifth, weekend handyman. Toilets, gutters, fences, whatever someone will pay for. Every check goes to Darius. Every last dollar. He assures me the creditors are not letting up. I take him at his word because that is what fathers do. 3 years of it. When was the last time I slept until daylight? When did I last get out of bed without my spine sounding like something mechanical and worn? When did I last sit at a table for a meal instead of eating over the kitchen sink? I genuinely cannot say. But I keep at it. Darius is all the family I have. Dorothea is gone. We lost our daughter in childbirth when she was 19. He is the last living piece of what Dorothea and I made together. So I show up. No complaints. No expectation of thanks. Tonight, when the grocery shift let out, I went home and cooked. Dorothea's recipe: chicken, celery, turnips, white wine, and fresh rosemary. Ladled it into a container while it was still steaming, drove it across town to the Ascent. The Ascent is a glass and steel tower in downtown Cincinnati, all polished surfaces and uniformed doormen whose jackets alone probably run more than my food bill for the month. Darius is on the 14th floor, a penthouse, windows stretching ceiling to floor, the whole city spread out below. I know the layout because I was there 2 years ago loading boxes onto the service elevator while he stood back and pointed. I rode up tonight in the same delivery uniform I had been wearing since 6 that morning, damp and wrinkled. The corridor on the 14th floor is marble, the kind that registers every footfall with a sharp click. I moved toward his door, the container heavier with each step. I raised my fist to knock. That is when laughter broke through from inside. The unguarded kind, big and loose, the sound of people who have never once lost sleep over a bill. I went still. Then Darius's voice came through, sharp and easy. Honestly, the guy's proud of working 5 jobs. 5. To me, that is just the hallmark of a failed life. The deadbeat old bastard actually thinks he is helping. More laughter. A woman's voice. Oh my God, Darius. I am serious. He kept going. Every week, like clockwork, he sends me these checks with little notes. Hope this helps, son. It is pathetic. If he had any real skills, any actual value, he would not need to work like a dog just to scrape together pennies. Another voice. Doesn't he know you are loaded? Darius laughed. He knows what I tell him. And what I tell him is that I am drowning in debt, and he is my only lifeline. Keeps him useful. Keeps him out of my hair. Their laughter spread through that marble corridor like heat. I was standing there, container in both hands, and something gave way inside my chest. Not my heart breaking, that description is too large, too theatrical. Something smaller. Something structural. The thing that had been keeping me vertical for 3 years. I placed the container on the floor in front of his door, setting it down without a sound against the stone. Then I walked back to the elevator. Quiet steps. Deliberate. Riding down those 14 floors, I watched myself in the polished steel, the reflection of a 67-year-old man, with gray at his temples and lines cut deep around his eyes, still in a uniform that smelled of sweat and diesel. I could see exactly what Darius saw when he looked at me. A man hollowed out by labor, propping up a son who despised him for it. One decision came clear as I crossed that lobby. No tears tonight. No unraveling. No raised voice at an empty room. I would keep every word that passed through that door, every laugh, every dismissal, every note of contempt, and I would sit with all of it. And then I would figure out my next move. I stayed in my delivery truck, in a darkened supermarket lot on the south side for 5 hours, not moving because walking through my own front door meant acknowledging what I had heard. It is 11 p.m. Parking lot empty, one street light going in and out every 30 seconds. I start counting the flickers. 20, 40, 60. I lose the thread. Diesel and old coffee in the cab. My hands on the wheel, engine cold. A security guard sweeps past the entrance with a bouncing flashlight out front. Does not glance my way. Nobody ever does. The words play on a loop. The deadbeat old bastard actually thinks he is helping. Keeps him useful. Keeps him out of my hair. 3 years, 5 jobs, 14 hours a day, $180,000 in debt, he said was pulling him under. And I never doubted a syllable because he was crying when he came to me. Because he is my son. Because when Dorothea died, and our daughter never made it home from the hospital, Darius was the only one left, the last proof that the family we built ever existed. At 3:30 a.m., I take out my phone, Darius's name on the screen glowing. My thumb sits over the call button for a full 10 minutes. Then I put it back in my pocket. Not now. Something has moved in me. Not the grief that broke open in the elevator and I let it go. This is something else. Colder. More focused. A resolve taking shape the way water goes to ice. I will not go to him with this. Not tomorrow. Not in a week. Not until I have traced every thread what exactly he did, how far it goes, who else is in it. If he wants a useful fool, I will give him the performance of his life. I will grin at him, cook for him, keep mailing those checks with their little handwritten notes. Hope this helps, son. And behind that smile, I will go through every document I put my name on, every bank record I never thought to question, every story about lawyers and creditors and a business sinking in debt. He miscalculated badly last night. He looked at me and saw someone too ground down to push back. My body pulls itself awake at 4:15 a.m., out of sheer habit, though I never slept. Truck home shower change. At 6 a.m., I punch in for the delivery route, same as any other morning. At 6:45, I stop and grab 2 breakfast sandwiches. At 7 a.m., I knock on Darius's door. He answers in silk pajamas, hair still flattened from the pillow, a yawn half finished. Dad, you are early. I lift the bag. I made your favorite. Well, bought it. Ham and egg on a toasted sesame bagel, extra cheese. Something moves across his face, a flicker I cannot quite name, surprise or guilt, or the brief irritation of a man caught off balance. And then he takes the bag. Thanks. You did not have to do that. I know I tell him, keeping the smile in place. But I wanted to. You work so hard, Darius. I just want to make sure you are taking care of yourself. He holds my gaze a moment longer than comfortable. I do not let the smile waver. He nods. You are a good dad. I almost said what I was thinking. Instead, I leave before he notices my hands are not steady. Tuesday afternoon, when my hardware store shift wraps at 6 p.m., I skip the grocery stocking job. First sick call in 3 years. The manager's voice goes strange with disbelief. Stomach bug, I say. He wishes me well.
My car ends up at the Cincinnati Public Library on the north side. I go to the second floor reading room. Quiet, except for a few college students with headphones, and one old woman bent over a newspaper. At the front desk, I check out a laptop on my library card. Years have passed since I touched a computer for anything besides work emails. The keys feel foreign under my fingers, but the muscle memory comes back. I pull up my email. Every message Darius sent me over the last 3 years. I go through all of them. There are dozens. Most run just a line or two. Thanks for the check, Dad. Creditors are breathing down my neck this month. You are the only thing keeping me afloat. The oldest one goes back to September 2021. Subject line, emergency, please call. Attached inside was a PDF legal demand letter listing a debt of $180,000 owed by a business called Dorothea's Craft Supply, LLC. I read that name and go still. Dorothea's Craft Supply, LLC. That company was my creation. I formed it for my wife in 2008. Quilts were her passion. Hand-stitched blankets, little decorative pillows she hauled out to craft fairs on weekends and sold for whatever the market would bear. The work lit her up. She never turned a real profit, a few thousand in a good year. But that was never the point. It was hers alone. Not a mother's obligation, not a wife's duty. Something built by Dorothea, for Dorothea. When illness came for her in 2009, the little business went dark. She died in 2013, and from that day forward, I left the account untouched. The entity just persisted, a dormant shell wearing her name. Darius had known about it since the beginning. He was 24 when he helped me file the paperwork, fresh from business school, full of enthusiasm about LLC structures and tax efficiency. I opened a new browser tab and searched Dorothea's Craft Supply LLC in the Ohio Business Registry. Still active. Registered agent, Darius Calloway. Sometime in 2020, my name had quietly been replaced with his. I worked through more files he sent over the years. Bank statements, payment records. Every document names Dorothea's Craft Supply LLC as the party carrying the debt. This was never about a failed venture or bad luck in the marketplace. My son has been steadily siphoning funds out of a company built in his dead mother's name, then calling me up to say he needed rescuing from creditors. He reached into her legacy and pulled out money. The one thing she ever made that was purely, entirely hers. I don't move from that library chair. Students work quietly around me on their laptops. The old woman turns another page. A bus out on the street groans to a stop. My hands have started shaking, but this is something different from grief. Shock doesn't cover it either. What I feel is rage. I navigate to a new tab, one keystroke at a time, slow and deliberate. Elder Financial Abuse Attorney, Cincinnati, Ohio. The screen populates with results. Law firm's free consultation offers testimonials from people who woke up one day and realized someone they loved had been robbing them for years. I sit there reading. Dorothea's Craft Supply, LLC. Her name anchoring a paper trail that documents a long, quiet theft. He didn't only take from me. He took from her from the memory she left behind. I know I need an attorney, but before I make that call, I have to understand the full shape of what he's done. At 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, I'm sitting with Conrad Bellamy at the security desk. 2 cups of gone cold coffee between us, and for the first time, I say it out loud to another person. I speak without emotion, no shake in my throat, no tears, just events in sequence, the way you document them in a report. Monday night, the Ascent Building, a pot of home-cooked stew in my hands outside a closed door. My son's voice on the other side of expensive wood calling me a deadbeat old bastard. The laughing. Leaving. Then, Tuesday at the library. Dorothea's Craft Supply, LLC. The business I created in honor of my late wife, leaking money into a stack of papers signed by my own son. Conrad doesn't say a word while I talk. Above us, the fluorescent bulbs hum their flat yellow note. The security monitors in the corner rotate through empty corridors and dark parking levels. 2 years we've worked this desk side by side, 5 nights out of 7. And most of those hours have passed without either of us needing to fill the air. I know how he takes his coffee. Black, no exceptions. I know he reads history books during the slow hours. I know there's a daughter out in Colorado he keeps at a distance. What I didn't know was the life he led before this uniform. When I go quiet, Conrad sets his cup down with care. The ceramic touches the metal desk with a small, clean click. Chipper, he says his name for me. Short for Raymond, my middle name, and nobody else has ever used it. Before I put on this uniform, I spent 22 years as a corporate insurance fraud investigator. I look at him differently now. Conrad Bellamy, 64 years old, silver at the temples, eyes like a hawk's behind wire-rimmed glasses, settles back in his seat. What you've just told me is not a domestic dispute. It's a crime. Elder financial exploitation, corporate identity theft, fraud. Using a deceased person's business entity to manufacture fictitious debt and drain money from a family member under false pretenses. That is multiple felonies. It hits like a bucket of ice water. 2 decades, Conrad says. That's how long I track down people running exactly this play. They identify someone close to them who trusts them completely, and they slowly hollow that person out, always with documentation tidy enough to look above board. I'm not some easy target, I say, keeping my voice low. No, Conrad says, You're not. But Darius has convinced himself that you are, and that arrogance is where he slips up. He puts his elbows on the desk and leans toward me. Do you want me in your corner on this? I think about the 2 years we've spent at this desk together, sharing bad coffee in the small hours, while the monitors cycled through nothing. All those quiet nights, each of us weighted down by things we never brought into the room. What would that look like? Conrad's smile comes then. The first one of the night. Nothing gentle about it. The smile of someone who has just located what he was tracking. We do this properly. Friday, mid-afternoon. I'm in the passenger seat of Conrad's car, pulled over 3 blocks from my office cleaning job. Rain pounds the roof in waves. Our breath mists the glass. Across the dashboard, Conrad has laid out the documents. Bank records I'd retrieved from my files. Receipts, every paper Darius forwarded over the past 3 years. He moves through them in order. A small reading lamp quipped to the visor, cutting hard light across each page. All right, he says, pressing a finger to one statement. September 2023. You transferred $2,800 to Darius, posted to your account on the 15th. I confirm it. I remember. He told me the creditors were about to take legal steps. Conrad lifts a second sheet. Look at this, same month. There's a joint account your son put it in both names in 2021. You authorized him to sign on it. He said it would simplify moving money back and forth, I tell him. Right. Then on September 17th, 2 days after your payment landed, a withdrawal goes out, $9,800, paid to Luxury Timepieces of Cincinnati.
He pushes a printed page across to me, a receipt.
Rolex Datejust stainless steel. Date of purchase, September 17th, 2022. Total, $9,800. Then October, another document comes out. You sent $3,000, October 9th, BMW of Cincinnati. Lease agreement, M5 model, $1,400 per month. He keeps pulling pages. November, $2,500 from you. Orchids at Palm Court, reservation for 6 people, $1,200. He weighs them out, one after another. The same rhythm, every month for 3 years. My money arrives, and within days it exits the joint account and becomes something else. Watches, a luxury car, tables at restaurants I've never once set foot inside. Rain keeps hammering the roof of the sedan. Under the streetlight, the papers spread across Conrad's dashboard look like evidence, which is exactly what they are. Each receipt lands like a blade. Darius isn't retiring debt, Conrad says, his voice level. He's maintaining a lifestyle. And I believe I can tell you why. He unlocks his phone, turns the screen toward me. A photo off a society page, Cincinnati Business Times, 3 months back. A gala. My son is there, in black tie, arm in arm with a young woman in a formal gown. The caption, Darius Calloway of Calloway Consulting with Celestine Drummond, daughter of industrialist Alistair Drummond. Alistair Drummond. That name needs no explanation in Cincinnati. Billionaire, real estate, energy, one of the biggest fortunes in Ohio. Your son is putting on a performance for her family. Conrad continues. The watch, the BMW, the dinners for 6. He's engineering a fiction, a portrait of a self-made man, rich enough to stand beside his wife. Every dollar of it charged to you. I study the image. My son radiates ease, confidence, the appearance of prosperity. None of it mine. I called in a favor, Conrad says. Rudy Ferrante, private investigator. 15 years working fraud cases alongside me. Careful, thorough, and he still owes me one. Whatever else your son has buried, Rudy will surface it. I turn to the window. Gray Cincinnati outside, rain dragging down the glass. 3 years, 5 jobs. Every dollar I ground out going to finance a watch, a lease, a dinner tab, so Darius could look the part for a woman whose father clears more before noon than I earn in 12 months. Where do we start? I ask. Conrad tucks the financial analysis away and rests it on the dashboard between us. His face is calm, cold, unreadable. We begin with a shadow, he says. Saturday morning, my neighbor Lorraine Pickett is waiting on her porch with a photograph in hand, a license plate. Somebody came by last week, she tells me, wanting to know if I thought you were still fit to manage your own affairs. The operation had started that Friday. Rudy Ferrante was already tracking my son across Cincinnati, but Lorraine's words told me the scope was bigger than I'd understood. This wasn't only about gathering evidence on Darius. Someone had turned that same machinery on me. Lorraine Pickett, 71. My neighbor for 3 decades stood there in a cardigan on what was a perfectly mild September morning. The woman misses nothing. 30 years of proof, every unfamiliar car, every dead streetlight, every stray animal drifting through our Hyde Park block got flagged. What man? I ask. Last Tuesday, she says. Close to 10 in the morning. He knocked, flashed some kind of credentials too fast to read, said he was a social worker doing welfare checks on elderly residents.
My stomach drops. He had questions, Lorraine continues. Does Gerald Calloway forget things? Is it safe for him to drive alone? Does he cook for himself? Does he seem disoriented? Can he handle his own finances? Her porch carries the smell of autumn chrysanthemums. Her hands tremble faintly as she holds out the photograph, an Ohio plate plainly visible captured through her front window. She had been standing guard without knowing there was a war. What did you tell him? I ask. Lorraine's voice doesn't waver. I told him Gerald Calloway has a sharper mind than I do, and he'd better clear my porch before I called the police. I take the photograph. The plate is unfamiliar to me. It won't be to Conrad. Did he visit anyone else on the street? I ask. Not that I saw. Just me. He left once I mentioned 911. I hug her. She smells of lavender soap and old books. Thank you, Lorraine. Keep this photo somewhere safe. And if anyone else comes around with questions about me, I need to know right away. Of course, she says, then softer. Gerald, what is happening? Family trouble, I say. Not a lie. The gears are turning. My son doesn't only want my money, he wants my autonomy. In Ohio, an adult guardianship order can eliminate every right a person holds. Finances medical decisions where you sleep at night erased by a judge's pen. Your guardian owns your life. You are rendered a legal child again, except children grow out of it. Guardianship wards almost never do. Building that case requires the right materials, neighbor statements, a social worker's assessment, a physician's note casting doubt on your mind. Darius had stopped simply stealing. He was building a cage. I send Conrad the plate photo by text. He replies in under 2 minutes. Bring it Monday. Rudy has his first report ready. Monday evening. I'm at Conrad's place, a tight 1-bedroom in Norwood walls given over entirely to bookshelves, the kitchen table buried under manila folders. Rudy Ferrante is already seated when I walk in. Rudy, mid-50s, lean, the kind of man who vanishes in a crowd, which is the whole point. He put 15 years into corporate fraud work alongside Conrad. Now he runs his own firm focused on what he calls personal misconduct research. 5 days on Darius. Here is what he found. Your son doesn't have a job, Rudy says, pushing photographs across the table. Not a real one. Calloway Consulting is a hollow shell. No clients, no office, just a registered name and a website. The photos spread Darius across Cincinnati, out of the Ascent past 10 in the morning in workout gear, into a high-end gym downtown. Settled at sidewalk cafe tables with wine and small plates running $80 to $150 apiece. Gym membership, $200 a month. Rudy continues. Out for meals twice daily, different venue every time, always upscale. Afternoons, he makes his rounds at Drummond Group headquarters, staging a performance of the powerful executive for his wife's prominent family. He is burning through borrowed prestige to match her world. He's performing for them, I say. Relentlessly, Rudy says. But that isn't the part that matters. He lays out a second set of photographs. My son walking into a building downtown. A brass plate beside the entrance, Chadwick and Webb Legal. 3 visits in 2 weeks, Rudy says. Tuesday the 9th, Thursday the 18th, and this morning Monday the 22nd. Each one ran between 90 minutes and 2 hours. Conrad leans forward. Chadwick and Webb do one thing: estate and guardianship litigation. You don't go there for a standard contract or a routine will. You go there when you intend to seize legal authority over another person's life. The photos between us. My son in tailored clothes walking into a firm that exists to strip people of their independence. That plate Lorraine photographed, Conrad says, sliding another page across. Registered to Summit Wellness Services, a front operation. They produce independent guardianship assessments on paper. Pay them $1,500, and they'll canvass your target's neighbors, doctors, whoever you specify, then write a report reaching whatever conclusion you need. 3 sessions with a guardianship firm in 2 weeks, Conrad continues. Fake social workers manufacturing false testimony from the outside. This isn't due diligence, Ray. This is an ambush. I stare at those photographs. My son in and out of that office, each image dated and time-stamped. A paper trail pointed at locking me away. How long before he files? I ask. Rudy and Conrad look at each other. 6 weeks, maybe, Rudy says. Possibly less. This pace of meetings means the petition is nearly done. Once it lands at the courthouse, a hearing date follows. After that, it becomes a race. A race I might not win, I say. Not if we move first, Conrad says quietly. 2 men in a cramped Norwood apartment. 1 retired fraud investigator. 1 private detective helping me fight my own son. What do we do? I ask. Conrad puts his finger on the Chadwick and Webb photo. We learn exactly what they plan to file. Then we take it apart piece by piece before it ever reaches a courtroom. 6 weeks to stop a guardianship petition. That night, I lie awake working through numbers. A legal defense requires money I don't have sitting anywhere obvious. But Tuesday afternoon, I drive out to the East Side Industrial Zone. A heavy iron key against my chest on a leather cord, a property I haven't seen in 4 years. Every time I think about going, I see Dorothea's hands on the deed.
The East Side Zone, rusted chain link, fractured asphalt. Warehouses, the dull copper of old pennies, arrayed like headstones. I bring the truck to a halt at iron gates, a padlock heavier than my fist securing the chain. The sign reads, Lot 47B, 12,000 square feet. I step out. The key rides under my shirt on its leather cord. It has been there since Dorothea died, never off my neck, never a word to anyone about what it opens. The padlock gives with a deep, solid click. The gates groan apart on rusted hinges. Inside, weathered but unyielding corrugated steel walls, a high ceiling with skylights hazed by years of grime. Concrete flooring mapped with oil stains laid down across decades. Dorothea acquired this property in 2007, paid for entirely out of her savings. $43,000 she had accumulated over 15 years of craft fairs and quilt sales. Every dollar set aside with purpose. She said it was for the grandchildren someday. I couldn't follow her meaning then. We only had Darius, and our daughter was already gone. What grandchildren? But Dorothea was certain. She put her own name on the deed, insisted it stay that way, and made me swear never to sell unless family required it. The warehouse breathes rust and old rain. Afternoon light presses through grimy panes in long, golden angles. This was Dorothea's sacred ground. I walk across the bare concrete, each step echoing off steel. In the far corner, high on the wall, a small wooden sign remains where she hung it 13 years ago. Hand-painted, Dorothea's Craft Supply, LLC, for the little ones. I never breathed a word of this place to Darius, not while Dorothea was living, not after she was gone. It was hers, untouchable, the one thing held apart from the slow wreckage of everything else. My phone vibrates. I pull it out. Unknown number, Cincinnati area code. Mr. Calloway, this is Garrett Nolan, Apex Industrial Partners. We'd like to bring our discussions to a close regarding your East Side lot. Our buyout offer of $4.8 million remains on the table. Please reach out at your earliest convenience to arrange closing. I read it once, then again, then a third time. $4.8 million. The strength drains from my legs. I sink to the concrete floor, back against the wall, the phone still glowing in my hand. What gave Dorothea that foresight? How did she peer 11 years ahead and know, truly know, that I would one day need exactly this kind of protection? Darius was 26 when she made this purchase, barely out of grad school, still addressing me like a father rather than an asset to be stripped. Our daughter was already in the ground by then. Grandchildren, nothing but a grief-stained fantasy. She bought it regardless. For the little ones, she said. Her name is still on that sign. Dorothea, my wife. 11 years in the ground and still running interference for me. I get to my feet slowly, my legs not entirely reliable. Moving to the center of the floor, I turn a full circle and just take it in. 12,000 square feet of commercial real estate, sitting in an industrial corridor that money has been quietly reclaiming for a decade now. Outfits like Apex Industrial Partners have been snapping up these old shells and gutting them, turning them into tech suites, distribution centers, makers markets. $4.8 million. 5 jobs, 14 hours a day. Every dollar I bring home funneled straight to my son, so he can strap Rolex watches to his wrist and slide into leased BMWs and sit in restaurants where a single bottle of wine runs more than I spend on food in a week. The whole time, a fortune dangling from a chain under my shirt. I send Conrad a text. Need to meet tonight. Important. He fires back within seconds. My place, 8 p.m. I chain the warehouse gates and tuck the key back against my chest. The drive back through Cincinnati feels like moving through gauze. Radio-silent windows open the September air, doing what it can for my face. Dorothea. She built this out of quilting money. 15 years behind a table at craft fairs. $43,000 she turned into $4.8 million because she grasped a truth I never did. The road ahead is longer than it looks, and the people who depend on you will need something solid underneath them. The letter crosses my mind, the one in my nightstand drawer, sealed. The one she sat down to write 3 days before she left this world. Maybe the time has come. But not tonight. Tonight I need to think through what this property means to the battle I am in. At 8 p.m., I settle into a chair in Conrad's apartment, and Rudy is already there. I lay it all out for them. Dorothea buying the property in 2007. The text that came in from Apex Industrial Partners. Conrad goes quiet for a stretch. Then something breaks open in him, and he laughs. Not the sharp kind, but the kind that comes out when a man's been holding his breath too long. Do you hear what you're telling me? He says. You're sitting on a $4.8 million asset, and your son doesn't even know it breathes. Dorothea never listed it as joint property, I say. The deed had her name on it alone. At her death, it came to me by way of the will. Darius was named in the paperwork, but he never bothered to read it. He was too consumed with his own importance to look twice at his mother's affairs. Rudy leans forward. This changes everything, he says, keeping his voice low. The moment Darius tries to drag you into court claiming you can't manage your own finances, you set a $4.8 million asset on the table that you've been stewarding by yourself for more than a decade. That sinks his whole argument. Conrad gives a slow nod. But we can't move too fast. The moment Darius catches wind of the warehouse, he recalibrates. We sit on this until the window is exactly right. I look at these two men across from me. When will we know when he's already counted his win? Conrad says. The drive home is quiet, the key still carrying the heat of my chest. I pull into the driveway and sit in the dark cab, staring at the small house in Hyde Park. $4.8 million. Dorothea's voice somewhere just behind my ear. For the little ones. She saw it. She laid the groundwork for a fight she would never live to watch me wage. 13 years before I needed it, Dorothea had already moved the piece into position. But leverage doesn't cure a body that's running on empty. Wednesday, 6:30 in the morning, Queensgate, Cincinnati. 3 years of 5 job days finally collect what they're owed. Unloading a heavy crate, my feet go wrong, and I meet the pavement with enough force that my delivery partner is convinced something inside me has quit. The fog is thick in the streets. My grip gives out on the handle, my knee goes sideways. The concrete rushes up. I register the sound before the sensation hits. Both palms rake across the surface. My shoulder absorbs the landing. The crate goes over with me, cardboard giving way. Mr. Calloway. Tavian Osei, 28 years old, 6 months as my partner on this route. He's at my side in a few strides, his face tight with fear. He's already decided this is cardiac. I'm fine, I get out, but the words don't have any air behind them. Tavian is already crouching. You're not fine, he says. He's down beside me on the wet ground. Do I need to call someone? No, just get me up. The pavement is soaked, both hands are burning. Tavian stays close, watching my face like he expects it to change at any second. In his mind, he is kneeling at the scene of a tragedy. What he doesn't know is that he is also building my son's legal file. He gets me upright. I put my back against the truck and breathe. The shoulder aches deep. My hands are stinging. But the bones are intact. You should probably get checked out, Tavian says. I'm 67 years old, I tell him. I've gone down harder than that, reaching for something off a shelf. He isn't sold on it, but he drops it. We run the rest of the route side by side. He takes the weight. I work the paperwork. Neither of us brings it up again. I don't give it another thought. 3 days pass before Conrad pulls out his phone on a Saturday night. 2 a.m. At the security desk. Same shift we always pull. He sets the phone in front of me without a word. Ray. His voice is barely above quiet. Watch this. The clip loads. Handheld. Unsteady. Me face down on wet asphalt. Tavian scrambling toward me. Timestamp, Wednesday, 6:47 a.m. Somebody had captioned it, "This old man works 5 jobs and still falls down. Someone give him a break." The numbers underneath: 43,000 views, 6,200 likes, 890 comments. I scrolled through them. People meant well. Someone help this man. This breaks my heart. Why is he working so hard at his age? Pure sympathy, everyone. Conrad tells me Tavian put it up Wednesday afternoon. By evening, it had burned through the Cincinnati community. Here's what you have to reckon with in a guardianship case. 43,000 people witnessed what Darius's lawyers can frame as your deterioration. Their compassion is beside the point. Their reading of an exhausted man rather than an impaired one doesn't matter. A judge sees a time-stamped record of physical failure caught on camera and widely circulated. Then Conrad keeps going. He switches screens and hands me the phone. A text chain between Darius and a contact saved as Chadwick and Webb Legal. Darius, Thursday morning. Can we use this video as exhibit evidence of failing physical and cognitive health? 43,000 views equals credible documentation. The reply: absolutely. Forward link. Will archive before he can request takedown. I hold the phone and look at it. 43,000 people opened that clip out of kindness. My son opened it looking for a weapon. Tavian had no part in this, I say quietly. No. Conrad agrees with that. The boy was trying to do something decent. He figured maybe visibility would get me some relief. He had no idea what he was placing in Darius's hands. I give the phone back. My hands don't shake. That catches me off guard. So what's our move? Conrad's answer is one word. Nothing. The clip is already locked in someone's archive. Petitioning to remove it now looks like concealment. We log it, fold it into our own case file, and build a record that shows a man in full command of himself. Every Sunday after my overnight ends, I walk through the doors of St. Anthony's Church. 15 years of that same walk. Third row from the back left side. Same spot always. Pastor Eugene Greer has known my name for all of it. So has a large share of the people in those pews. When the service ends, he finds my eye across the room, a small motion toward his office. Something has shifted in him. Inside the room is close and hushed, books everywhere, the faint smell of old paper in the air. He pulls the door shut. Raymond, the full middle name. He's one of a handful who still uses it. There's something I have to tell you. I take the chair across from him. His hands rest flat on the desk. Your son paid me a visit last Tuesday, Pastor Eugene says. 63 years old, gray at the temples, the kind of settled that comes from 4 decades of sitting across from people in their worst moments. He told me he was frightened for you, that you've been getting confused, losing track of names, not placing people you've known for years. Something coils tight in my gut. He wanted me, Pastor Eugene continues, to put my name on an affidavit swearing that I've watched your mind slip during Sunday services. The walls of that small office feel closer than they did a moment ago. What did you tell him? Pastor Eugene's answer is clean and unadorned. I told him no. I told him you are among the most clear-headed people I know in this congregation, that you carry every prayer and every sermon in your memory without effort. And I told him that a man who truly feared for his father's welfare would go to that father, not circle around him collecting signatures. The relief that moved through me was physical. Then I told him to get out of my office. I'm bringing this to you now, Pastor Eugene says, because Raymond, your son, has been spinning a version of events that has no foundation in reality. I let that land, sit with it. Should I get involved? He asks. A phone call from me might make clear that what he's doing crosses a line. Don't, I tell him. Keep things exactly as they are. Darius can't find out we had this conversation. If a judge ever hears this case, I want you in that courtroom as a witness, not as someone my son can paint as an enemy. He gives a slow, deliberate nod. You'll have me there when it counts, he says. I make the drive home that afternoon with my mind fixed on 2 things, evidence and the story Darius is telling. He's laying his foundation carefully, 1 viral clip, 1 phony social worker, 1 pastor at a time. But there's a flaw running through all of it. The people who genuinely know me won't give him what he needs. They won't lie. But witnesses alone don't win cases. What I need is someone who can weaponize the truth. A lawyer. The right kind. Come Monday, I'm on lunch break. 12th floor cafeteria. Legal documents fanned out in front of me across the table, when the building's corporate office manager, Claudette Garvey, pulls up a chair beside me. Gerald, you look troubled, she says. I glance up. Claudette has held her position on this floor for 8 years. My time here cleaning these offices goes back 2. We've shared a few words during my evening shift over the years. She tends to stay late. I come in when the building empties out. We pass each other in corridors that most people never see. Cordial, not close. 2 people from separate orbits. Nothing, I say. Just some reading. Her gaze drops to the papers. I can see her take in the headings one by one. Ohio Guardianship Code, Elder Financial Exploitation, Chadwick and Webb Legal. Mr. Gerald, she says, her voice dropping, and she pulls out the chair across from me like she's already decided she's staying. I've watched you bent over those same documents every day for 3 days. Talk to me. There's a particular kind of grace that comes from people who notice you when the rest of the world looks through you. The floor manager who registers the late shift janitor poring over legal briefs, the delivery man who stops when you're down, the pastor standing firm when lying would be easier. I give it to her straight, stripped down. My son invented a debt business, money I supposedly owe him from a venture that never happened. He helped himself to what was left in his mother's company account after she passed. And now he's constructing a guardianship petition, maneuvering to have the courts hand him control over my affairs. At the rate he's moving, I've got roughly 4 weeks before he pulls the trigger on a filing. Claudette doesn't say a word the whole time. When I wrap up, she tilts toward me across the table. There's someone I went to law school with, she says, Nadine Holbrook. Estate fraud, asset protection, that's her whole practice, nothing else. If your story checks out, she'll want to hear it directly from you. She doesn't wait. Phone out, right there at that cafeteria table, with the smell of warmed-over food and bad vending machine coffee all around us, she makes the call. Nadine, it's Claudette Garvey. I've got somebody you need to sit with. This can't wait. I know your plate is overloaded. I'm asking you to trust my judgment here. A beat of silence. Claudette shifts her eyes to me. She can do Thursday at 3 p.m., she says. Will that work? I nod. He'll be there, Claudette says into the phone. She ends the call, takes a napkin, writes down an address, and pushes it my way. 18th floor, 5th Street. Get there early. And Gerald, don't walk in empty-handed. Pull together everything your son has ever put in writing, every bank record you have, every receipt, all of it. After my grocery shift that night, I stop at the library and get on a computer. I search Nadine Holbrook. 28 years in practice, exclusive focus on elder financial exploitation and estate fraud, a 94% success rate in contested guardianship hearings, partner at Holbrook and Crane Legal. I notice it's a different Chadwick than the one Darius is using. I study the photo on the firm's page. Formal portrait. Gray suit, jaw set, eyes direct. The hourly rate she commands almost certainly exceeds what I take home in a week. I log off, head home. That night, for the first time in 3 weeks, my body lets me sleep past the alarm. Thursday, 2:45 p.m. I'm standing on the sidewalk outside a glass tower on 5th Street. My shirt is the best one I own. My trousers still carry a ghost of diesel. Inside the lobby is marble floors and steel fixtures. A guard at the desk sends me to the 18th floor. The elevator ascends in 43 seconds. I count all of them. These hands of mine are clean, but the years are carved into them. The scarring, the stiffened knuckles, every ridge that hard work leaves behind. I'm about to walk into the world of someone whose hands have never touched what mine have. Nadine Holbrook's firm takes up half that floor. The windows run floor to ceiling, and the Ohio River fills the view beyond them. The receptionist has my name. She walks me back to a corner office where the sightlines carry clear to the North Shore. Nadine Holbrook, 52, is already on her feet when I come through the door. Gray suit, a handshake that means something. She points me to the chair facing her desk. Mr. Calloway, she says. Claudette gave me the broad strokes. I want the whole picture, from the start. Don't rush. I went for 45 minutes without stopping. Dorothea's death. The debt Darius invented. 3 years of keeping 5 jobs running at once. What I uncovered at the library. Dorothea's Craft Supply, LLC. The imposters posing as social workers. The video that circulated online. Pastor Eugene's warning. The warehouse worth millions that Darius has never once mentioned because he doesn't know it exists. Nadine doesn't break in once. She works a yellow Weagle pad the entire time, pen moving without pause. When I fall silent, she lays the pen down across the page. 10 full seconds pass. Mr. Calloway, she says at last. What you've laid out for me describes no fewer than 4 separate felony counts, state and federal both. Corporate identity theft, elder financial exploitation, wire fraud, a guardianship petition built on fabricated evidence. Every one of those charges carries prison. She settles back into her chair. The whole scheme comes apart, she says. But what I'm about to ask of you won't be easy. You cannot deviate from your routine, every job, every shift. Keep his dinner coming, keep the checks going, with the notes tucked in. Give him nothing to react to. He cannot sense that you've shifted. When I'm ready, I'll tell you. Not before.
So how much time are we talking?
I ask. 4 weeks, give or take, she says. Maybe pushing 5. I need a case that leaves no daylight. We strike once, and we strike to finish it. Move too early, and he recalibrates. What I want is for him to stay comfortable, loose, overconfident. She draws a folder from a drawer and opens it, a contract sliding across the desk toward me. The retainer is $20,000, she says. That said, given what your warehouse is worth and how solid your position is, I'm open to a contingency arrangement with the fee deferred. Nothing leaves your pocket at the front end. We prevail, and we are going to prevail. And my payment gets carved out of what we recover from your son. I look at the contract sitting there in front of me. When does this begin? I ask. It already has, Nadine says. I step out of her office at 4 p.m. with my warehouse shift an hour away. I climb into my truck and I turn the key. And something shifts in my chest for the first time in a month. Not relief exactly, more like clarity. I can see the destination from here. Proper legal weight now behind me, the fight moves into its next chapter. That Tuesday afternoon, Conrad lays a spread of surveillance photos across his dashboard and turns to me. Ray, your son walked into a federal forgery charge, and he did it in a parking structure we already had under watch. We're in his car, parked 3 blocks from my building, rain coming down hard on the roof. The photos are sharp telephoto work, multiple vantage points. This was Monday evening, Conrad says, pressing a finger to the first image. Drummond Group headquarters, the parking garage. Your son is waiting for Celestine after her shift ends. My son is framed in the image, next to a black Mercedes, his briefcase propped open on the hood. Celestine is a few feet across from him, in a suit, looking like the day has worn her down. He's transferring a document stack to her hands. Conrad advances to the next shot. Heavy stack, legal-size pages. She puts her name on documents for a living. It's reflex at this point. She works through the top sheets quickly and signs without hunting for the fine print. In the photo, the cross pen moves across the pages, probably the same one she reaches for on 8-figure contracts. She doesn't know what she's actually signing. That's how it works at her level, Conrad says. You're moving through 50 documents a day. You run on autopilot. Darius has mapped that vulnerability and built his plan around it. The following photo catches Darius tucking the papers away, no different in posture than a man who just agreed on lunch plans. Now watch this, Conrad says. He sets down a separate batch, tight close-ups, resolution pushed as far as it'll go. Rudy managed to capture the page contents while Celestine was in the middle of signing. 2 days to sharpen those frames into something legible, but the text came through. I lean in. Preliminary guardianship filing, Conrad says. A petition to establish that you are legally incapacitated and vest full guardianship authority in your son. Boilerplate forms. Celestine Drummond Calloway's signature shows up across 6 pages in total. Then he pauses. Here's the thing, though. We have footage of her signing 3 pages, first center and last in the stack. The pages in between, she never laid a hand on them, but her name is on all 6. He deals a forensic enlargement onto the dashboard in front of me. 2 signatures placed side by side, both attributed to Celestine Drummond Calloway. They don't match. The first one flows natural, unhesitating. The second is stiff, measured, the strokes slightly trembling where they should be fluid. Your son signed his wife's name on a court document. Conrad says it quietly. You understand what this means, Ray. This is crossed out of civil territory entirely. We're talking criminal forgery, federal felony level. You have to grasp what forging a signature on a court document actually is. It isn't like falsifying a school form. It's 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 federal false statements, up to 5 years per count. And Darius did it 3 times on the same filing. He was that desperate. I say, staring at those clumsy, uneven forgeries. He couldn't even pull it off convincingly. Desperation strips people of their precision. Conrad agrees. And imprecise people leave tracks behind. He collects the photographs into a folder and holds it out to me. Nadine has to see this right away. It rewrites our entire approach. We're no longer simply mounting a defense against a guardianship petition. We're building an active federal criminal case. I take the folder. The rain keeps hammering the roof. Through the fogged windows, Cincinnati sits gray and cold under the sky. Does Celestine know, I ask, that her name was put on documents she never signed? Almost certainly not. As far as she's concerned, she put her signature on routine family paperwork. When the truth reaches her, Ray, she will be the most damaging witness the prosecution has. Friday evening. My warehouse shift is winding down. I'm entering the last inventory counts when Clifford Brannigan, the warehouse manager, waves me into his small glass office. Clifford, 45, built like a man who played linebacker in a former life, sits behind his desk and flicks his toothpick into the trash. Once I'm settled, he says, "We need to have a conversation." I sit. Last week, Clifford says, a well-dressed young man came around to the loading docks. Suit tie, expensive watch, asking questions about me. My stomach drops. He wanted to know, Clifford goes on, whether I dozed off during shifts, whether I made mistakes in the log entries, whether I seemed disoriented about my own job. Told him his father was getting a little senile, and he was deeply concerned about my safety out here. Clifford leans back. I knew who he was, he says. I've seen that face in the family photo you showed me 3 years ago. Your son, the Princeton one. Yes, I say, quietly. Clifford nods. That's what I figured. So I told him Mr. Calloway is the most dependable man on this floor. 3 years of perfect attendance. Not a single safety incident. Best log accuracy in the entire building. Then I told him to remove himself from my property before I had him charged with trespassing. I hold his gaze. He then asked whether I'd put my name to a statement about how you perform. Clifford continues. I said, gladly. I can write that for you right now, though I don't expect it'll read the way you're hoping. Clifford reaches into his desk drawer, pulls out a sheet of paper, and slides it across to me. Typed on official warehouse letterhead. To whom it may concern, I read aloud. Gerald Calloway has been employed at this facility for 3 years. His performance has been consistently exemplary. At no time has he displayed confusion, memory failure, or conduct that raises safety concerns. Any assertion to the contrary is false and defamatory. Signed, Clifford Brannigan, Warehouse Operations Manager. I look up from the page. Your son is erecting a case against you, Clifford says. What for, I have no need to know. But no one walks onto my floor and asks me to tell lies about the people who work here. I fold that letter with care and slide it into my pocket. All I can manage is thank you. Don't thank me, Clifford says. Just walk through that door on time like you always do. And if your son shows his face here again, I'll be writing that down too. We shake hands. I don't say much more, but my list of witnesses just got one name longer. That night at Conrad's apartment, I lay everything out on the table. The forged signatures, Clifford's refusal to be used, Pastor Eugene's warning, Lorraine's photograph of the phony social worker, Claudette's referral to Nadine. Your son is accumulating mistakes faster than I can catalog them, Conrad says. Forging his wife's name, trying to pressure witnesses into false statements.
Every crime he commits is anchored to the one before it. And the people he's going to, in order to corrupt them, are turning around and calling you instead. How long before he files? I ask. 3 weeks, Conrad estimates. Maybe shorter. But Ray, by the time he does, will be positioned. While my circle of witnesses kept widening, Conrad and Rudy had turned their attention to the financial trail, the kind of cold arithmetic Darius couldn't talk his way around. On Saturday morning, Conrad spread 23 bank withdrawal slips across his dining table. Ray, your son, has been forging your signature for 18 months, Conrad said. $47,000 in federal bank fraud. Conrad's home had become something between an investigator's command post and a document archive, timelines taped to walls, forensic binders stacked in rows. Rudy sat across from me, a spreadsheet lit up on his screen. The old PNC savings account you opened for Dorothea back in 1986, Rudy said, pushing a printout across to me. 23 counter withdrawals spread across 18 months, running from $800 to $4,500 apiece, totaling $47,000. I stared at the figures. I had never authorized a single one, and I didn't know the online password. Conrad laid out scanned teller slips. The signatures bore a resemblance to mine, but they weren't mine. The capital H sits at the wrong angle and the S loop comes out too wide, Conrad observed. A handwriting expert will identify these on first review. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 1344, federal bank fraud carries a maximum of 30 years in prison. 30 years. Darius was 38. He'd walk out at 68. My age right now. I had no desire to see my son in a cage, but he could not be left to continue unchecked. Nadine needs these without delay, Conrad said, sliding everything into an envelope. Tallying Darius's felonies, we had corporate identity theft, elder financial exploitation, 23 counts of bank fraud, 3 counts of document forgery on the guardianship filing, and an attempt to pressure witnesses into making false statements. On Monday, I took the next step myself. I arranged a face-to-face meeting with Garrett Nolan at Apex Industrial Partners. Their North Shore offices had a direct view of the ballpark. Mr. Calloway, we've been reaching out to you for 3 weeks, Garrett said, opening a portfolio on the desk. He laid out that a man claiming to represent the Calloway estate had approached them about an immediate cash buyout of our East Side warehouse, presenting a notarized power of attorney. Garrett slid the document toward me. The signature looked like mine, but Apex's legal team had held it up against the original signature on Dorothea's 2007 deed. The differences were visible. The newer signature was careful, hesitant, and wrong. We put the negotiations on hold, Garrett said. Who is presenting himself as your representative? My son, I told him. A long silence followed. Garrett asked whether I still intended to sell. I said yes, but only in a direct transaction, clean terms, no one acting in between us. We shook hands on it. Dorothea's warehouse was moving forward. That evening, I laid the full picture out in front of Nadine. She listened, and then a cold smile crossed her face. Your son attempted to steal a $4.8 million property with a forged document and walked right into a corporate legal team, she said. He is composing his own indictment. When do we go? I asked. Soon, Nadine said. Let him file the guardianship petition. Let him enter that courtroom believing he's in control. Then we take him apart one piece at a time. Driving home, I thought about 30 years and my son's notarized lies. His greed is writing his own indictment, one forged signature at a time. But while I had been cataloging crimes aimed at Dorothea's warehouse, Darius was moving against something closer. On Wednesday afternoon, Lorraine called, her voice tight. Gerald, there's a vehicle sitting 3 houses down, she said. A man inside has been pointing a camera at your property for 4 days running. I was mid-shift at the hardware store and stepped into the back stockroom to take the call. Lorraine described a dark blue sedan with Ohio plates. The driver was using professional equipment and working his way around every angle of my house. "I'm going out to get the plate number," Lorraine whispered. Through the line, I heard her footsteps, then the click of her phone camera capturing the man who was doing the capturing. She read off the plate, Echo Bravo 7429, and sent me the photo. I passed the plate straight to Conrad. While I waited for him to call back, I stood in that stockroom, staring at the walls, thinking about that house. Dorothea and I bought it in 1988. We fought about which color to paint the bedroom. She put her favorite yellow roses in the ground out front, and Darius took his first steps on the front porch. Now someone was running the numbers on what it would fetch at sale. 28 minutes later, Conrad called back. "The car belongs to Apex Realty Brokerage, a discount liquidation firm that moves estate properties fast, typically at 70% of market value. Somebody contracted them to assess it. Your son intends to sell your home the moment that guardianship order lands in his hands. A house of 36 years isn't just structure. It's every memory pressed into the walls, the pencil marks tracking a child's height, the floorboards that announce your coming, and Dorothea's roses out front. My son was running the numbers on all of it. "I need to reach Nadine," I said. Nadine picked up on the second ring.
When I walked her through the surveillance, she told me we had to accelerate. "The irrevocable trust documents," Nadine said. "I've spent 2 weeks drafting them. They move legal ownership of everything, the warehouse, this house, your savings, into an irrevocable trust, with you holding the lifetime beneficiary position. Once it's executed, none of those assets can be touched. Even if guardianship were granted, the trustee holds authority over them, not Darius." "Who serves as trustee?" I asked. "Simone, your granddaughter. We'll bring in a professional co-trustee until she reaches 18, but the beneficial ownership rests with her the way Dorothea meant it to." What I was about to learn wasn't just a betrayal. It was something that could land a man in federal prison. Before I walk you through it, let me ask you this. If you found out someone close to you had been quietly working to destroy everything you built, would you go to them directly, or would you gather every piece of proof first and let the law do the talking? We set the signing for Monday morning at 9 o'clock in her office. She needed 2 witnesses from outside the family, so I chose Conrad and Pastor Eugene. Nadine assured me that Rudy had eyes on the court filing system. Darius hadn't submitted the petition yet. He believed he still had room to maneuver, but he only had 4 days. That night, I drove past the blue sedan. The driver's outline was visible in the last of the October light. As I walked toward my front door, I caught the click of his camera shutter from 50 feet away. Inside the house carried the smell of old wood and Dorothea's roses. Standing at the kitchen sink, my hands were steady. 4 days. 4 days to seal my assets before Darius files. But before I put my name on any legal document, I have to face the thing I've been avoiding for 11 years. On Friday night, alone in my bedroom, under a single yellow desk lamp, I finally opened the letter Dorothea left me. The quarter-folded sheet of paper I hadn't been able to read, because I understood that once I did, nothing would be the same. The envelope has lived in my nightstand drawer since 2013. I have shifted it aside 10,000 times, reaching for other things. Reading glasses, chapstick, the television remote. Every time my fingers found that worn paper, I closed the drawer again. Tonight, I open it. The page unfolds along 4 deliberate creases. Dorothea's handwriting covers both sides in blue ink, graceful but unsteady. The tremor from her medications, visible in every curve and loop. She wrote this 3 days before she died. I know because she dated it at the top, May 17th, 2013. Ray, it begins. She is the only person besides Conrad who has ever called me that. I worry about our boy. He has a sharp mind, sharper than mine ever was, sharper than yours. But he is missing the one quality that matters above everything else in a person. He does not value the people who sacrifice for him. I have watched him these past few years, the way he speaks about you when your back is turned, the way he reduces everything to money and position. I told myself it was a phase. Young men pass through periods of arrogance. But Ray, I no longer believe this is a phase. I think this is the person he decided to be. My hands are trembling. The paper shakes in the lamplight. Ray, the East Side warehouse property, you know the one, the lot I purchased in 2007 with my craft business earnings. You thought I was throwing our emergency fund away on industrial real estate. But Ray, I bought it because I could read where things were heading, more clearly than you gave me credit for. That warehouse needs to go into a trust for the grandchildren someday. Don't let anyone strip them of what's coming to them, no matter how persuasive the case sounds. I stop reading, close my eyes, and breathe. You have to understand, Dorothea wasn't simply writing a letter. She was constructing a fortress 11 years ahead of time, one layer at a time, one instruction at a time. I keep reading. And Ray, if the day comes when you must fight him, and I'm afraid it will, fight only with the complete truth. Don't embellish. Don't exaggerate. Don't try to present yourself as something more than you are. The truth is the only weapon that never has to defend itself. It holds its own ground, and it outlasts every lie. The letter runs another page, details about the warehouse deed, the name of her attorney, a post office box where she had kept backup documents I never knew about. The final line, I love you more than words can carry. You are the finest man I have ever known. Don't let anyone persuade you otherwise. Your Dorothea. I refold the letter along its original creases, hold it against my chest, and sit in the dark for hours. She knew. 11 years ago, when Darius was 27 and newly finished with business school, Dorothea had already seen the direction he was headed. She watched him reduce people to line items. She heard him speak about me the way you'd discuss an asset to be managed, and she quietly, deliberately left me the exact map I would need to survive this. Monday morning, 10 a.m. I sit in Nadine Holbrook's office on the 18th floor, the Ohio River filling the windows beyond her. Nadine slides a document across the desk. Final irrevocable trust agreement, she says. Execution draft. Read every word. Don't rush. I go through every clause with careful, deliberate attention. It takes 40 minutes. The document shifts every asset I hold out of my name and into a sealed trust. The warehouse, the house, the savings accounts, all of it. The beneficiary, Simone Calloway, my 9-year-old granddaughter. The structure is irrevocable. It cannot be modified. It cannot be undone. No one can reach inside it, including me. I sign on page 12. The notary stamps the pages right away. That sound, that solid mechanical thunk, just placed everything Darius thought was within his grasp, behind a wall he can't scale. As of this moment, Nadine says Gerald Darius has nothing left to take. Even if he somehow secures a guardianship order, he may hold authority over your person, but not your property. Not Simone's inheritance. The trust holds title now. He cannot touch any of it. Not ever. I get to my feet, shake her hand, and walk out of the high-rise into the cool Cincinnati autumn air. My phone buzzes. A text from Darius. Hey, Dad. I want to go over some important health and legacy paperwork with you this weekend. There are some documents that need your signature for estate planning. Can we get together Saturday afternoon, maybe at my place? I'll bring lunch. I read it twice. Health and legacy paperwork. Estate planning. He's going to try to put the guardianship documents in front of me, buried in a stack of things that look routine. Sign here, Dad. And here, just standard material, don't bother reading it all, except there is nothing left to sign away. The warehouse is gone, transferred this morning into an irrevocable trust.
The house is gone. Same trust. Every dollar in those savings accounts locked beyond his reach as of 10:17 a.m. today. I type back. Sure, son. Saturday works. See you then. I put the phone in my pocket. You're too late, Darius. The paperwork is already done. The assets are already gone. You have no idea. Darius has no idea the paperwork is signed and the assets are unreachable. But while he spends the week setting up his Saturday move, I need to gather the pieces Dorothea scattered across 11 years. On Tuesday afternoon, I drive out to Blue Ash to find Norbert Kincaid, the man who stood beside me for 23 years, in the Cincinnati steel mills, the man my wife trusted with her final secret. Norbert lives in a modest ranch house on a quiet residential street, where American flags hang from every few porches. I haven't laid eyes on him in 2 years. The mills closed in 2002. We lost touch the way men do when the job was the only thing holding them in orbit. I knock. He pulls the door open, peers at me through thick glasses, and then recognition takes over his face. "Oh, Ray," he says. "Lord Ray, is that really you? It's me, Norbert." He brings me in with both arms. His hands have a faint tremor to them, age, maybe arthritis. For 23 years, we stood side by side in those mills, breathing steel dust and heat. He kept Dorothea's secret for more than a decade without a single word to anyone. "Come in," he says. "I had a feeling you'd be coming. You have, and Dorothea told me to hand something to you only when the moment was right." Norbert says, walking me down a narrow hallway to his bedroom. "I think the moment is right now." He lowers himself slowly, carefully, and opens a small fireproof safe in the bedroom closet. Inside is a thick, pristine envelope sealed in red wax. Dorothea's handwriting on the front for Raymond Calloway to be opened when necessary. Norbert passes it to me. "This is the original copy of Dorothea's last will and testament," he says. "Executed in 2008. 2 independent witnesses. I was one. The other was her attorney, Margaret Holloway, who passed in 2016. I break the seal. The document inside is legal-size paper, professionally drafted and notarized. I read the key paragraph 3 times. "I, Dorothea Marie Calloway, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath the entirety of my interest in the commercial property located at 2200 Jest Street, Cincinnati, Ohio 15207, to a protective trust to be established for the benefit of any grandchildren born after my death. This property shall bypass my son Darius Calloway entirely, and shall not be subject to claims by creditors, spouses, or legal guardians. The trustee shall be appointed by my husband Raymond Calloway at his sole discretion." How did Dorothea see this far ahead? How did she know 11 years before this day exactly what I would need? "She asked me to hold this somewhere away from the house," Norbert says quietly. "She said, just in case Darius goes through the drawers once I'm gone." I take the envelope. My wife was still fighting for me from 11 years in the grave. "Thank you, Norbert," I say. "You in some kind of trouble, Ray?" "I was," I say. "But I'm getting it handled." Saturday afternoon. I drive to the Ascent Park and visitors take the elevator up to the 14th floor. I knock on Darius's door at exactly 2 p.m. The door opens. My granddaughter Simone, 9 years old, hits me like a small freight train, arms wrapped around me with a force that nearly takes the breath right out of my chest. She still believes the world is good. She still thinks the adults around her tell the truth. "Oh, Grandpa," she shouts. "Hey, sweetheart,"
I say, dropping to one knee to hold her right. Darius comes out of the kitchen with his phone pressed to his ear, holding up a finger to say he'll just be a moment. He looks at ease, confident, like a man who believes the outcome is already settled. Simone tugs me into the corner of the living room where her things are spread across the floor. She leans in close, barely above a whisper. "Grandpa, yesterday I was watching cartoons on my tablet in my room, and Daddy was talking really loud in the living room with another man." He sounded scary. I pressed the voice recorder because I got frightened. "I want you to listen to it." She holds out the tablet. I fit the small pink headphones over my ears. Darius's voice pours in, unmistakable. "What I need is to establish that the old man can't function independently. The medical evaluations we've arranged will document progressive cognitive decline. We file the petition 3 weeks from Tuesday, which gives us enough runway to pull together all the supporting affidavits." A second voice, older, measured, Attorney Chadwick. "And the house appraisal? Already taken care of," Darius says. "Apex Realty puts it at $320,000. We can move it within 2 weeks of guardianship approval. The warehouse is the real target. $4.8 million. We run it through a shell trust I hold. Pull the proceeds out over 18 months so we don't trip any tax flags." "What about the daughter, Simone? She's 9. Courts don't put weight on 9-year-olds. And Celestine will go along with whatever I tell her. She trusts me." I hold my face completely still. Nothing flickers. I take off the headphones, pull Simone close. "You did exactly right, sweetheart," I whisper. "Can Grandpa keep this recording?" She nods. I move the audio file over to my phone. 43 minutes of Darius and Chadwick mapping out the entire scheme, timeline, dollar figures, strategy. Every piece of it laid out in Darius's own voice. Darius comes back into the living room, tucking his phone away. "Oh, you're already here, Dad," he says, thrown for a half second. "Why didn't you knock?" I rise to my feet with a slow, vacant smile. "I forgot," I say softly. "You know how I've been with things like that lately." Darius lets out a small laugh, completely at ease. He is looking at exactly what he told Chadwick he'd find. A fading old man, easy to steer, simple to manage. "No problem, Dad," he says. "Come and sit down. I brought lunch. We've got some paperwork to get through." He waves me toward the dining table, where a stack of documents is laid out next to deli sandwiches and bottled water. I sit. I eat half a sandwich. I nod along and smile pleasantly while he walks me through various forms requiring my signature for estate planning. I sign nothing. "Actually, Darius," I say after about 20 minutes. "I'm starting to feel a little worn out. Would it be all right if we pick this up another time? Maybe I take these with me and read through them at home first." "Sure, Dad," Darius says, a shadow of disappointment crossing his face. "Take all the time you need. No hurry at all." I hug Simone goodbye. She wraps herself around me and holds on. I drive home with the audio file sitting on my phone. That night I forward it to Conrad, then to Nadine Holbrook. I sit at my kitchen table with Dorothea's original will in front of me and Simone's recording on the phone beside it. My 9-year-old granddaughter, frightened innocent, trying to record a cartoon on her tablet, just handed me the thing that will bring my son's entire scheme down. Simone's recording gave me 43 minutes of Darius planning fraud in his own words. But audio alone doesn't close a case. Courts need paper trails, forensic evidence, figures that can't be argued away. The subpoena arrived 72 hours after Simone's recording, and I held that single sheet like it was something sacred. Because in family court, bank records don't lie, and a man with charm can't talk his way past federal documentation once it starts speaking. Monday morning, October 20th. I meet Nadine at her office. She slides the approved subpoena across the desk. "For PNC Bank," she says. "Court-ordered disclosure of all transaction records tied to your legacy savings account. Every withdrawal, every signature on file, every IP address and geolocation tag attached to each session." She gestures to a woman seated beside her with a laptop open on the table. "This is Brenda Alcott, bank fraud analyst. I've brought her in as our expert witness." Brenda, mid-40s, wire-rimmed glasses. the brisk and focused manner of someone whose days are built around spreadsheets. Looks at me. "Mr. Calloway," she says, "once those records come through, the paper trail will lay it all out. Signature forgeries, we establish those through forensic handwriting comparison. 5P addresses will pinpoint where each transaction was initiated. The withdrawal pattern itself will demonstrate a systematic taking of funds over time. What we're building is technical evidence that cannot be disputed proof your son acted entirely without your knowledge or authorization." I can feel the perimeter tightening around Darius from every direction. Not just testimony now, financial forensics, numbers, timestamps, digital fingerprints. My son robbed me twice my trust and my money. But he forgot I spent 31 years in construction, where every nail is accounted for and every measurement is exact. Brenda turns her laptop toward me. The screen shows a sample transaction log from a prior case she handled. "Take a look at these timestamps," she says, moving her finger to the screen. 3:47 a.m. If we can place you somewhere else at that hour, asleep at work, anywhere that gives you an alibi, the forgery becomes self-evident. I lean in. The cells in that spreadsheet glow with cold, precise certainty. Each row is a theft. Each column is a lie. "The geolocation data," Brenda continues, "will tell us the IP address the online banking session came from. If it traces back to your son's home while you were confirmed to be elsewhere, that is prosecutable evidence." I reach over and press my fingers against the subpoena. The court seal is raised and embossed in the heavy paper. I can feel the authority in it, its weight. Nadine's office carries the scent of fresh ink and old law books, the smell of accountability arriving at last. "How long before the records come in?" I ask. 10 business days, Nadine says. "PNC is required to comply within 2 weeks of service. We'll have everything by early November." Meanwhile, across the city, in a place I've never set foot, something else is in motion. Alistair Drummond sits in his penthouse office on the 40th floor of Drummond Group headquarters, working through a private investigator's report. He commissioned the background check 3 weeks earlier. Not out of suspicion, not yet, but because he'd noticed irregularities in the Drummond Group division under Darius's oversight. Small things. Expense reports with numbers that didn't quite resolve. Nothing solid, just off. The investigator's report is thorough. Page 4 holds the detail that rewrites everything. Subject's father, Gerald Raymond Calloway, age 67, owns commercial warehouse property at 2200 Guest Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 15207. Assessed value, $4.8 million. Acquired outright in 2007. No mortgage, no liens, queer title. Alistair reads that paragraph 3 times. $4.8 million, owned outright since 2007. No mortgage. He thinks back across every conversation he's had with Darius over the past 2 years. The picture Darius had painted so carefully, a struggling father, financially dependent, mentally slipping, a constant drain on his son's resources. "I'm essentially keeping him afloat," Darius said once over drinks at the club. "My father made some poor choices after my mother passed. He went through most of what he had. At this point, I'm the one making sure the bills get paid." Alistair believed it. Why wouldn't he? Darius was sharp, refined, driven. He spoke about family obligation with real conviction. But a man who owns nearly $5 million in debt-free commercial real estate is not a struggling dependent. One of those facts makes the other impossible. Alistair pours himself an 18-year Glenfiddich. The amber liquid catches the afternoon light cutting through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He stares out across the Cincinnati skyline. He built everything he has by reading people, by distinguishing genuine character from performance, real substance from a polished surface. Darius had seemed exceptional, sharp, driven, family-minded, always talking about looking after his wife's family, making sure the old man was taken care of. But now, the data directly contradicts the narrative. Alistair thinks of his own estranged daughter. 6 years of silence between them. He wonders whether he saw Darius too favorably, because Darius gave him something to fill that void, a son figure to invest in, a stand-in for the child who'd stopped returning his calls. The whiskey has the taste of expensive regret. He picks up his phone, dials a number out of the investigator's report. I walk out of Nadine's office at 2:30 p.m. The subpoena is filed. The expert witness is engaged. Simone's recording is transcribed and entered into the record. Dorothea's original will is copied and notarized. Every element is in position. I check my phone as I cross the lot toward my truck. One missed call. Cincinnati number, no name attached. Voicemail waiting. I press play. Mr. Calloway, this is Alistair Drummond. I think we ought to speak about your son and what's happening at my company. I have some concerns. Please get back to me when you can. My direct line is I note the timestamp. October 22nd, 2:34 p.m., 16 minutes ago. My pulse picks up. Alistair Drummond, the billionaire, Darius's father-in-law, the man whose money and standing Darius had been turning into weapons against me for years. His patron, his shield, the person at the top of everything. And he is reaching out to me directly, not through lawyers, not through Celestine, not through any corporate intermediary. Man to man. I look at that phone number on the screen. My thumb settles above the callback button. Behind me, the traffic of the Strip District roars past. Trucks, cars, the noise of a neighborhood built on labor. Ahead of me, the most powerful man in Darius's world is waiting on an answer. Either I'm about to hear from a tycoon's lawyers, or the king has just figured out he crowned a fraud. I press call. 2 rings before Alistair Drummond picks up. His voice is even deliberate, the register of a man who assembled empires by taking the measure of people. Hello, Mr. Calloway. I'll get straight to it. I know about your warehouse property. I know my son-in-law told me you were living off his generosity. One of those facts cancels the other out, and I do not keep liars in my family or at my company. We talk for 18 minutes. I give him only what he can verify on his own. When the call ends, Alistair says one thing. We'll speak again soon. In person. 2 days later, Lorraine reached me at dawn. With 2 words, she knows. I'm at my kitchen table, coffee halfway to my mouth. She knows what Chadwick and Webb Legal sent Celestine a formal letter. Lorraine says her breath fast. Requesting signature confirmation on guardianship affidavits, documents Celestine had never laid eyes on, never signed. The letter showed up this morning. I had my lens on her when she opened it on the terrace. Her hands were shaking. I put my coffee down without thinking. Where is she now? Still going through it, Lorraine says. Wait, Darius just stepped out onto the terrace. He spots the letter. His face. Oh, Gerald, the color just left his face. I hear Lorraine catch her breath. She's yelling, Lorraine whispers. I can't make out the words, but she's raising her voice. Darius is trying to settle her down. She just threw the letter at him. Celestine's confusion gave way to horror the moment that letter registered. Documents carrying her name. Court filings she'd never seen. Legal instruments she'd never touched. Her husband had forged her signature on federal paperwork. What's Darius saying? I ask. Lorraine pauses. He's gesturing, backpedaling. Hold on, I can read his lips. He just said something about protecting her, about your dementia, about Simone's future. Celestine's answer must have been unambiguous, because Lorraine whispers, she just said felony. I could see the word. You forged my signature on court documents. That is a felony, Darius. A felony. I stand at my kitchen window, watching October rain trace lines down the glass, thinking about the woman who just discovered the man she married is a forger. Celestine was collateral damage. She loved a fiction and married a con. She never had a chance against Darius's performance, no more than I did. Lorraine calls back 3 hours later. She's gone, Lorraine says. Drove straight to a Starbucks parking lot in Oakland. Sat in the car for 20 minutes. Then made a call. My plate reader caught her next stop, Hargrove and Associates on 6th Avenue. Hargrove and Associates, she repeats. Cincinnati's top high-asset marital dissolution firm, Lorraine says. Genevieve Aldrich, senior partner. She handled the Rothman divorce 3 years ago. $47 million settlement. I closed my eyes. Celestine had scheduled an appointment for November 3rd. The billionaire's daughter is divorcing my son, and Darius has no idea the walls are pressing in from every side. Monday morning, October 27th. I sit in the Apex Industrial Partners conference room on the North Shore. Floor-to-ceiling windows look out over the Ohio River. Nadine is beside me with a leather portfolio stacked with documents. Garrett Nolan, Vice President of Acquisitions, comes in carrying 2 copies of the asset purchase agreement. Mid-50s, temples going gray, the sort of professional who treats every closing like it means something. Mr. Calloway, he says, gripping my hand with purpose. I've spent 30 years in commercial real estate. I have never come across a cleaner title or a better-kept property. It's been a privilege. I sit down. Nadine pushes the contract in front of me. I read every page. 20 minutes. The terms are plain. Sale price $4.8 million. 30% in escrow due at signing, wired immediately. The balance upon title clearance in 60 days. 30% of $4.8 million is $1.44 million. That money wires straight into Simone's irrevocable trust. Not my name. Not within Darius's reach. Untouchable. I sign on page 17. The wire transfer confirmation surfaces on Nadine's laptop like a fortress wall going up. $1.44 million. 7 figures. Simone Calloway, sole beneficiary. Numbers that mean Darius's reach ends here, permanently. Wire confirmed, Nadine says quietly. $1.44 million in Simone's trust. Untouchable. Dorothea's legacy is secure. I think about my wife, about the warehouse she bought in 2007 with her craft business money, about the letter she left me telling me to protect the little ones, about every beam and brick of that building standing watch over our granddaughter's future. Dorothea, I kept my word. Our granddaughter will never have to want for anything from him. Garrett Nolan stands and extends his hand one final time. Congratulations, Mr. Calloway, he says. The property transfers to Apex Industrial Partners as of today. The remaining balance will clear escrow by mid-December. You should feel proud of what was built here. My wife built it, I say. I'm just making certain it goes where she intended. I walk out of Apex Industrial Partners into crisp October air. The Ohio River moves gray and steady at my back. Cincinnati spreads out across the hills in every direction. My phone buzzes, an email. Subject line, read Darius Calloway /confidential discussion /urgent. Sender, Cecilia Fontaine, Executive Assistant to Al Drummond. Mr. Calloway, Mr. Drummond, requests a meeting in person tomorrow, Tuesday, October 28th at 10 a.m. Drummond Group Headquarters, 40th floor, Executive Suite. Please confirm your availability at your earliest convenience. This matter is time-sensitive and confidential. I stare at the screen. Tomorrow morning, Drummond Group Headquarters, 40th floor. The billionaire's inner sanctum. I moved $1.44 million in a single morning. Signed the documents that lock away my granddaughter's future. Watched my son's wife discover he is a felon. And now I am walking into a sit-down with the most powerful man in Cincinnati. Not as a struggling father-in-law, hat in hand. Not as the addled old man Darius described to everyone who would listen. As a man who owns the truth of his own story. I type back, confirmed, I'll be there. I pocket my phone and head toward the truck. Tomorrow I sit down with Al Drummond and tell him exactly who his son-in-law is. And the truth, as Dorothea wrote 11 years ago, is the only weapon that never needs defending. The invitation came on Monday, November 3rd. Heavy cardstock embossed in gold lettering. The Drummond Foundation cordially invites you to the annual Thanksgiving Gala, November 27th, 7 p.m. Grand Ballroom, Hilton, Cincinnati, Netherland Plaza. Black tie optional. I set it on the kitchen counter beside Dorothea's photograph and wondered whether she had ever pictured this me in a tuxedo, seated at a table among Cincinnati's oldest money, while our son worked to dismantle what she'd built. 5 days had passed since my meeting with Alistair Drummond. I'd arrived at his office at 10 a.m. sharp, taken the elevator to the 40th floor, walked past windows spanning the full view of the Ohio River.
His assistant Cecilia had shown me into a conference room where Alistair was waiting alone. No lawyers, no staff. Just a 73-year-old billionaire with a single question. Why should I believe you? I placed Brenda Alcott's forensic report in front of him. 23 forged signatures, $47,000 taken over 18 months, the counterfeit power of attorney Darius had used in his attempt to sell Dorothea's warehouse, and the guardianship petition showing Celestine's name on pages she'd never signed. Because your daughter didn't know, I said. And when she finds out what was done in her name, she's going to need you. Alistair went through the documents for 11 minutes without saying a word. Then he looked up. What is it you want from me? Nothing, I said. I want you to know the truth before the court date. That's it. He walked me to the door himself, shook my hand at the threshold. The foundation gala is November 27th. You'll get an invitation. I'd like you to be there. Not a request, an alliance. Now I held the proof of it in cardstock and gold leaf. Tuesday afternoon, I was swapping out a sink trap at the Norwood duplex when Nadine called. Celestine Drummond just hired Hargrove and Associates, she said. Genevieve Aldrich handles high-asset dissolution exclusively. She doesn't pick up a case under $2 million. I tightened the slip nut checked for drips. How do you know? Because Genevieve called me this morning asking whether we'd share discovery on the forgery evidence, Nadine said. Celestine received the Chadwick and Webb letter about the guardianship petition. She put the pieces together. I wiped my hands on my work pants. What did you tell her that I'd talk it over with my client? Nadine said. Gerald, this works in our favor. If Celestine files first, Darius loses his most credible witness. A judge isn't going to side with a son whose wife is divorcing him over fraud. She has children, I said. They'll be hurt by this. Yes, and Darius hurt them, Nadine said quietly. You're just the one who refused to look away. Wednesday morning, I drove out for my security shift. Conrad was standing at the loading dock with 2 coffees in hand. You look worn out, he said. 5 jobs, I said. 67 years old. Work the numbers yourself. He passed me the coffee. My daughter called yesterday. Asked if I knew Gerald Calloway. Conrad had spent 32 years in fraud investigation before he retired. His daughter worked as a paralegal at Chadwick and Webb. What did you tell her? That you're the most honest man I've ever known. Conrad said it plainly. And if your son went ahead and filed those guardianship papers, there's a whole other side to this. He took a slow sip. She said the petition cites cognitive decline, fall risk, financial mismanagement. Darius's attorney had hospital records, incident reports, witness statements behind him. Conrad the man has a TikTok clip of me catching my foot on a garden hose, I said, and a warehouse manager who refused to lie on his behalf. But she also told me Celestine walked into the office on Monday, Conrad said. She wanted to look at the guardianship file. When she saw her own signature on the consent form, the color drained right out of her face. She asked for copies of everything. Walked out without a word. I watched a delivery truck ease backward into the loading bay. She didn't sign it. I know, Conrad said. And now she does too. That same afternoon, Lorraine Pickett called. There's something I have to tell you, she said. I met Celestine this morning, at Eden Park. I lowered myself into the seat of my truck. You went to her. No, she came to me, Lorraine said. Somebody passed along my number. She wanted to understand about the fake social worker, about Darius's visits, about you. Lorraine's voice dropped. Gerald, I told her everything. The groceries you bought Darius when he was in college. The car you got running so he could make it to his first job. The tuition you covered when his scholarship fell short of summer classes. The hospital bills from Dorothea's cancer that you're still carrying. Why, Lorraine? Because she didn't know, Lorraine said. She believed you were wealthy. She thought Darius had put himself through school. She thought the warehouse was something Dorothea had inherited, not something the two of you built from nothing. Lorraine paused. She wept, Gerald, right there on a park bench. She said, he told me his father was selfish. He told me his father never lifted a finger for him. He told me his father didn't deserve a thing. I shut my eyes. 18 years of Darius's marriage, and Celestine had been living inside a story that cast me as the villain of my own sacrifice. What did you say to her? I asked. The truth, Lorraine said, that you're the best father Darius never deserved. I sat in that truck for 20 minutes after we said goodbye. The invitation was still on the passenger seat. The Drummond Foundation Annual Thanksgiving Gala, 7 p.m., black tie optional. Dorothea used to say, the truth didn't need defending, it just needed witnessing. 6 weeks I'd spent pulling together evidence, lining up allies, locking down assets. I'd signed away everything we'd built to keep it beyond Darius's reach. I'd ground myself down to afford the fight he'd picked. Now his wife knew what his lies had actually cost. I picked up the invitation. November 27th, 3 weeks out. By then, the court hearing would be behind us, the forensic evidence submitted, the bank records subpoenaed. By then, Celestine would have filed for divorce or chosen to stand with the man who'd forged her name. By then, I'd have my answer about whether the truth was enough. My phone buzzed. Text from Nadine. Emergency hearing moved up. Judge Carrington wants both parties in chambers. Friday, November 7th, 9 a.m. Darius's attorney filed a motion to accelerate, citing immediate danger to Ward. 4 days. Things were moving faster now. Tavian Osei knew the law firm's name the instant he scanned the delivery address. Chadwick and Webb, Legal, Norwood, Cincinnati. Same outfit Gerald had mentioned 3 weeks back when Tavian had stopped by to apologize for the TikTok video that blew up. He parked his delivery van at 6:45 Friday morning and grabbed the express envelope stamped Priority Court Filing. In the lobby, a receptionist barely glanced at him. Signature here. Tavian signed the tablet, then let his phone slip from his pocket as he bent to pick it up. 2 seconds, camera angled at the open delivery ledger on the counter. The notation read, Emergency Guardianship Petition Hearing. Scheduled November 26th, 2024, 9 a.m. Hamilton County Probate Court, Judge Carrington presiding. He was already back in his van texting before the receptionist looked up. Chadwick and Webb just took express delivery. Ledger shows court filing package expedited status. Photographed everything. I was swapping out a water heater in Norwood when my phone buzzed. I read Tavian's message twice, then rang Conrad. He's timing the guardianship filing to Thanksgiving week, I said. The gala announcement and the court move were running in lockstep. Conrad's voice went flat the way it used to when he worked fraud cases. Malice aforethought documented. This hands us premeditation for fraud charges. Meet me at the Queensgate Diner in 30 minutes. I finished seating the pressure relief valve, checked for leaks, pocketed my $75, and drove. The diner booth smelled of scorched coffee and 40 years of bacon grease. Conrad spread Tavian's photographs across the formica, scarred by decades of truckers' elbows, evidence laid out, where working people eat breakfast, not in corporate boardrooms. The timestamp on the delivery ledger read 6:47 a.m. The court docket entry confirmed what I'd already figured. November 26th, hearing November 27th, gala, Conrad said. He wants the judge's signature before the champagne toast. I studied the photograph. My son had mapped this out with the same precision Dorothea used to plan our anniversary dinners, every detail coordinated, every player in position, every moment built for maximum effect. He's not just trying to steal my granddaughter, I said. He's staging a public execution. Conrad poured cream into coffee that didn't need it. We file the counter petition November 18th. Bank fraud, signature, forgery, witness testimony. Nadine's briefs will land like a freight train. He looked up. Gerald, you understand what he's after. He gets guardianship declared the day before Thanksgiving, then rises at the Drummond Foundation Gala in front of 200 of Cincinnati's wealthiest families and announces he's assumed legal custody of his cognitively impaired father. Celestine's family applauds his devotion to family. Alastair Drummond shakes his hand. The society pages run it Sunday morning. While I'm legally incompetent to fight it, I said. And while you're legally unable to do a thing, Conrad said. Can't retain attorneys, can't reach your accounts, can't make medical decisions. He controls Simone, controls the guardianship, controls the story. Conrad slid the photographs across to me. Except he has no idea about the forensic accountant, the signature analysis, the warehouse sale, or the 43-minute recording his daughter made. I lifted my coffee. It had gone cold. Nadine files November 18th, Conrad said. That gives Darius 8 days to mount a defense against 23 counts of forgery and $47,000 in documented theft. Judge Carrington will have our evidence packet 72 hours ahead of the hearing. What if the judge doesn't read it? Then Nadine stands up November 26th and moves to admit Exhibits A through R into evidence, Conrad said. Darius's attorney will object. The judge will overrule. And your son will watch his choreography fall apart. I drove toward Hyde Park thinking about calendars. 12 days until Thanksgiving. 12 days until Darius tried to crown himself before 200 witnesses who had no idea they were attending an execution that had already been called off. Dorothea used to mark the important dates in red pen on the kitchen calendar. Our anniversary. Darius's birthday, the day we signed the warehouse lease. She believed in marking things, the good ones and the hard ones alike. I wondered what color she'd have chosen for November 26th. Saturday afternoon, I picked up Simone for our weekend visit. Celestine answered the door with her face carefully neutral. 4 o'clock, she said. Not a minute later. Simone climbed into the truck, clutching her stuffed rabbit. We drove to the public park near the synagogue, the one with the swings that didn't squeak. November wind was pulling leaves across the empty playground. I pushed her on the swing for 10 minutes, steady and slow, her laughter bright against a gray sky. Then she dragged her feet through the wood chips, came to a stop, and turned to look at me with eyes that were exactly Dorothea's. Grandpa, why does Daddy tell everyone you can't remember things? Her voice was measured, no wobble in it, no child's uncertainty. You remember everything. I knelt in the wood chips to meet her at eye level. What do you mean, sweetheart? You remember my exact birthday, Simone said. March 9th. You remember my favorite colors, teal and gold. You remember my first grade teacher's name was Mrs. Paterno. You remember everything. The wind found its way through my jacket. I reached out and took her small hands in mine. I remember everything, I said. I will always remember you. Simone nodded with a 9-year-old's gravity, that broke something loose in my chest. "I know," she said quietly.
"That's why I kept the recording for you." I gathered her into my arms while the November wind moved across the empty playground, carrying the smell of dying leaves and the edge of coming winter. She wrapped both arms around my neck and whispered against my shoulder, "I chose you, Grandpa." At 4 o'clock, I brought her back to the house. Celestine took Simone's hand without ever meeting my eyes. I drove home through the November dusk, watching the rearview mirror. Simone would be sitting down to dinner now, doing her homework, getting ready for bed. In 12 days, Darius would stand in the Hilton Cincinnati Netherland Plaza Grand Ballroom and make his announcement. Except Judge Carrington would already have seen the bank fraud evidence, the signature forgery documentation, and a 9-year-old's recorded testimony. I glanced at the empty seat beside me where Dorothea used to sit. She chose us. The nameplate on the bench read Honorable Irene Stanhope, and her face made clear she'd already absorbed more than enough foolishness for one Wednesday morning. 17 years on Hamilton County Probate Court had sharpened her instincts. She could smell a bad faith petition before the opening argument was done. I sat beside Nadine at the respondents' table, a manila folder thick with documentation between us. Across the aisle, Darius sat next to Chadwick, senior partner at Chadwick and Webb Legal, a man who'd built his name on high-stakes guardianship work and almost never lost. Almost. Mr. Chadwick Judge Stanhope said this emergency petition cites cognitive decline, fall risk, and financial mismanagement. The hearing was set for November 26th. What warranted moving it up? Chadwick rose and straightened his tie. Fresh evidence emerged, pointing to immediate danger to the proposed ward, Your Honor. We were obligated to act. Ms. Holbrook, Judge Stanhope cut him off. Nadine stood with the composure of someone holding 4 aces.
Your Honor, the petitioner alleges cognitive failure, but the record documents systematic financial fraud. Mr. Calloway's mental sharpness is not in question. His son's criminal intent is.
She laid the first exhibit on the bench. Neurological evaluation, November 10th, signed by Dr. Raymond Cole at Allegheny General. Cognitive function, normal. Memory assessment, excellent. Recommendation, no limitations. The petitioner also alleges financial mismanagement. Nadine continued. Yet Mr. Calloway carries no delinquencies, meets every obligation on time, and recently executed a sophisticated, irrevocable trust protecting his minor granddaughter's inheritance. Exhibit B, credit report, pristine. Exhibit C, trust documents notarized and filed. Your Honor, I'd like to call Norbert Kincaid to the stand. Norbert had spent 23 years beside me on the floor of the Cincinnati steel mills and still showed up for coffee every Thursday without fail. He took the witness box in his good khakis, labor-hardened hands, steady on the Bible. Mr. Kincaid, how long have you known Gerald Calloway? 23 years in the mills, and close friends ever since, Norbert said. Have you observed any cognitive decline, memory loss, or impaired judgment? Norbert glanced at Darius, then at me, then back to Nadine. No, ma'am. Gerald holds on to things I've long since forgotten. Just last Thursday, he reminded me about my grandson's baseball tournament. It had slipped my mind completely. One more question, Nadine said. Does Mr. Calloway need help managing his daily affairs? He runs 5 jobs, Norbert said. I'm retired, and he still outruns me. Judge Stanhope made a note. Chadwick shifted in his chair. Nadine returned to our table and drew out the forensic analysis. Your Honor, the true purpose behind this petition isn't protection. It's concealment. The petitioner Darius Calloway forged his father's signature 23 times across 18 months, siphoning $47,000 from joint accounts set up for his late mother's medical expenses. The courtroom held the smell of old varnish and industrial carpet cleaner. I watched Chadwick shuffle papers with unsteady hands, an expensive legal strategy folding in on itself. Furthermore, Nadine said, Darius Calloway forged his wife's signature on this guardianship petition. She has initiated legal separation proceedings citing fraud and forgery. Exhibit G, handwriting analysis confirming Celestine's name, appears in Darius's hand. Exhibit H, separation papers, filed November 20th. Judge Stanhope removed her reading glasses. Mr. Chadwick, does your client wish to address these allegations? Chadwick dropped his voice and spoke urgently to Darius. My son's face had gone white. We'd request a continuance, Your Honor, to review. Denied. Judge Stanhope said it plainly. This petition claims Gerald Calloway poses immediate danger to himself and demands emergency court action. The evidence shows no cognitive impairment, no financial mismanagement, and substantial documentation of the petitioner's own criminal conduct. She stamped the file. Petition denied with prejudice. Mr. Calloway retains full legal autonomy and all custody rights regarding his minor granddaughter. Chadwick leaned toward Darius. I caught the whisper from 3 feet away. With prejudice means no refiling. It's over. I walked out of that courthouse at 11:15 Wednesday morning. 6 weeks of construction dismantled in 40 minutes. That afternoon, Nadine called. A G's office confirmed receipt, she said. Formal investigation into the bank fraud and embezzlement is now open. FBI Cincinnati field office is reviewing the interstate wire transfers tied to the warehouse sale attempt. I was in my truck outside a Norwood duplex where I'd just repaired a furnace. They already have everything. Delivered Monday, Nadine said. Your civil case and the criminal probe are running parallel now. Thursday at the gala is its own chapter, but law enforcement already knows what Darius spent months trying to bury. Thursday brought a text from Alistair Drummond. I won't be at Thanksgiving dinner. My presence would only complicate your moment. My statement is on file with your attorney. Good luck, Gerald. I sat with that message for 5 minutes. A man of that standing, someone I'd met exactly once, had chosen the word of a 67-year-old maintenance man over his own son-in-law. Friday, Celestine's separation filing entered the public record. Lorraine told me she'd heard from her sister, whose daughter had a job at the courthouse. Saturday, I worked all 5 jobs. Sunday, I attended early mass and lit a candle for Dorothea. Monday, I bought a new shirt for the gala. Tuesday, I pressed my only suit. Wednesday evening, Conrad and Lorraine arrived at my kitchen at 6 p.m. I'd put together a simple stew, 3 ingredients, nothing elaborate. We sat at the scuffed wooden table Dorothea and I had bought at a yard sale in 1980. Conrad set the master evidence folder in the center. 1 copy to the AG, 1 to the FBI, 1 in your pocket. Everything documented, everything duplicated. The stew simmered on my old stove and warmed the room without making any claims about itself. No complexity, no performance. Everything Darius never grasped about integrity. Tomorrow you walk into that ballroom, Lorraine said, and you tell the truth. That's all Dorothea ever asked. Just tell the truth. Conrad raised his tea mug. To Dorothea. We drank without speaking. Through the window, first, snow was settling over Cincinnati's November dark. They left at 8 o'clock. I stood at the sink doing dishes, watching snowflakes catch the streetlight. The manila envelope sat on the table, 147 pages that would turn the Hilton Cincinnati Netherland Plaza Grand Ballroom into something Darius never anticipated. Dorothea's photograph watched from the counter. 11 years she'd been gone. 11 years of working 5 jobs to cover her medical bills, while our son schemed to take what we'd built together. Tomorrow, I'd walk among 200 Cincinnati elite in their cocktail wear and speak the truth she never lived to hear, that our son was a thief, that his wife was leaving him, that I'd kept our granddaughter out of his reach. Tomorrow, the truth found its witnesses. I dried the last dish, folded the towel, switched off the kitchen light. Tomorrow, I walked into the Hilton Cincinnati Netherland Plaza Grand Ballroom at exactly 6 o'clock, in my only suit, carrying 30 years of truth in a manila envelope. Crystal chandeliers threw warm light across 200 guests in black tie, champagne flutes catching reflections like promises. A string quartet tuned in the corner. The room hummed with money and anticipation. Dorothea, I walked into ballrooms with you for 40 years. Tonight, I walk in without you, but you're here all the same. I spotted Darius across the room in a custom tuxedo that likely ran what I clear in 3 months. He was working a circle of investors, animated, laughing, teeth white against his tan. Then he saw me. His smile locked for half a second, raw fear crossing his face like a lightning flash. Before something colder moved in behind it. Predatory confidence. He figured I'd arrived alone and defeated exactly what his script called for. I took a glass of water from a passing server and read the room. The head table held place cards in formal calligraphy. I counted the seats. Alistair Drummond's card occupied the center position, family names on either side. The chair itself sat empty, pulled back from the table as though the person it belonged to had chosen elsewhere. No one walks away from his own foundation's Thanksgiving gala without sending a signal. Cincinnati's wealthiest patriarch had declared his position by leaving that chair vacant. It spoke louder than a prepared statement. I pressed my hand against the envelope inside my jacket. 147 pages, everything documented, every true. And this is Gerald. Darius's voice carried across 15 feet of marble floor. He came toward me with arms open, performing warmth for anyone watching. So glad you made it. Come, there are people I want you to meet. He walked me toward a cluster of investors near the bar. The type was unmistakable. Bespoke suits, relaxed posture, the ease of people who have never once done the arithmetic on their grocery bill. Everyone, this is Gerald, Darius said, his voice carrying just the right note of affection. An old friend who worked as our live-in handyman and helper for years, very dedicated to the family. The ballroom carried expensive perfume, fresh flowers, and the particular scent of ambition. 200 people who measured life in board seats and square footage, watching a man in a 15-year-old suit move through their world like he belonged there. Because I did. Fletcher Adair put his hand out first. He ran Adair Capital, Cincinnati's third-largest private equity fund, and gave janitors the same direct look he gave CEOs. Good to meet you, Gerald. Likewise, I said, holding his gaze. Cecilia Fontaine stood beside him, sharp-eyed and direct. She'd built half of Cincinnati's North Shore waterfront and trusted people who made things over people who simply owned them. And what line of work did you pursue, Gerald? I felt Darius tense beside me, poised to steer the conversation if I misspoke. Well, I spent 31 years as a master industrial steel mechanic, I said, keeping my voice level. Precision work. Everything has to be exactly right or the whole structure comes apart. Cecilia's face opened with genuine curiosity. Steelwork. That's honest labor. Built this city that trade. Yes, ma'am, I said. Fletcher nodded. My grandfather worked the mills. Hardest job he ever loved. The smile at Darius's mouth pulled tight at the edges. This wasn't the story he'd built. The old handyman was meant to shuffle and mumble, not stand tall and speak plainly about skilled craft that earned real respect. Gerald's being modest, Darius cut in smoothly. These days he keeps himself busy with odd jobs here and there. Very active for his age. 5 jobs, I said. Maintenance, plumbing, security. I stay useful. Cecilia smiled. I like useful. The conversation drifted on. Darius steered me away after 3 minutes, his hand at my elbow a shade too firm. The next hour moved in careful orchestration. I circulated with quiet restraint, accepting introductions, waving off champagne, watching Darius grow more assured with every moment. I stayed silent about what actually mattered. He glanced at his watch again and again. 7:15, 7:37. 7:45. The formal announcement was set for 8 o'clock, his moment of triumph advancing on schedule. Darius carried the particular glow of a man who believes he's raised a fortress, when what he's actually built is a gallows. Every handshake, every smile, every minute ticking toward 8 o'clock, drawing the rope tighter around a neck he doesn't know is already in the noose. I sipped water and pressed a finger against the envelope in my jacket pocket. Waited. Across the ballroom, Celestine stood near the exit doors in a navy gown that likely cost more than my truck. She wasn't working the room, wasn't smiling, wasn't anywhere near her husband. All evening she'd held careful distance, 30 feet at minimum, positioning herself for departure rather than celebration. Her posture said everything her voice couldn't say in public. I'm not standing beside him anymore. Anyone watching closely could read the collapse of that marriage in where she chose to stand. Once across the length of the room, she caught my eye. No words exchanged, just a small, quiet nod. Then she looked away. At 7:40, Darius moved toward an investor near the bar. I was close enough to catch it. We have a very special family announcement at 8 o'clock, he said, voice warm with anticipation. Something I've been working toward for years.
Looking forward to it, the investor replied. Darius turned and swept the room until he found me standing near a decorative column. Our eyes met. He smiled, genuine pleasure spreading across his face. He believed I was beaten. Thought I'd come to this glittering ballroom to stand in silence while my own humiliation was announced. Thought 3 decades of patience meant I'd forgotten how to fight back. He was so certain I was broken that he couldn't see I was simply waiting for the microphone. I stood 20 feet from the raised platform, where the foundation's chairman would deliver opening remarks before handing off to the featured speakers. Darius had arranged to speak second. Prime position, maximum attention. I touched the envelope one last time. Everything documented. Everything true. Everything Dorothea never got to say about the son who'd robbed us while she lay dying. At 7:50, Darius moved toward the platform. He lifted a silver spoon and tapped it against a crystal champagne flute. The sharp ring cut through conversation like a blade. 200 faces swung toward him. He smiled, radiant, victorious, and raised the microphone. I stood 20 feet away, the manila envelope folded inside my jacket, watching my son prepare to announce the beginning of his own undoing. Darius was mid-sentence. I'm proud to announce our family's next chapter. When I rose from the corner table and began walking toward the stage, 200 faces turned. The string quartet's music faltered, then stopped. My footsteps on the marble floor became the only sound in that grand ballroom. Darius froze at the microphone's smile locked in place like a frame caught on film. Dad, what are you? This isn't the time. I kept walking, center aisle steady pace. The manila envelope pressed against my ribs with every step. 2 security guards moved in from the sides, professional, polite, ready to intercept the elderly man, disrupting Cincinnati's most prestigious Thanksgiving gala. Then a hand rose from the far corner of the ballroom. One gesture, palm out, carrying unmistakable authority. Alistair Drummond sat in the last row, positioned where nobody would notice unless they were looking for him. He'd said he wouldn't attend. He'd lied. The billionaire who'd shaped half of Cincinnati's skyline sat in a folding chair, watching his son-in-law's father walk toward a microphone. And when security moved to cut me off, Alistair signaled them to stand down. Let him speak, he said quietly. The guard stepped back. I climbed the stage steps, stood beside my son, and held out my hand for the microphone. Darius's fingers tightened around it. Dad, please not now. We can talk about this later. I waited. Our eyes locked. Something in my expression must have told him this moment was as inevitable as gravity, because his hand opened and the microphone passed between us like evidence changing hands in a courtroom. I adjusted the stand to my height and looked out at 200 Cincinnati elite in black tie attire, champagne forgotten, every conversation suspended. "Good evening," I said. My voice moved through the speakers, calm and clear. "My name is Gerald Calloway. My son introduced me earlier as his former family handyman. That is incorrect. I am his father, and I have a few things I would like to share tonight." I drew the manila envelope from my jacket and unfolded it. The papers crinkled, amplified by the microphone. "I'm going to read 5 facts," I said. "No speculation, no emotion. Just facts that have been documented, notarized, and filed with the appropriate authorities." Darius stood 3 feet to my left, the color leaving his face. "Point 1, I said. My son, Darius Calloway, embezzled $180,000 from his deceased mother's business, Dorothea's Craft Supply. When confronted, he told me it was legitimate business debt. It was not. The funds were diverted to personal accounts and luxury expenditures. I turned the page. Point 2. He forged my signature 23 times across 18 months, committing federal bank fraud. Total theft, $47,000 from joint accounts established to pay my late wife Dorothea's medical expenses. Forensic evidence has been submitted to the FBI Cincinnati field office."
Somewhere in the room, a champagne flute slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the marble, the crack like a gunshot. Nobody moved to clean it up. I kept reading. Point 3. He forged his wife Celestine's signature on a fraudulent guardianship petition claiming I was cognitively impaired and required legal supervision. The petition was heard by Judge Irene Stanhope in Hamilton County Probate Court on November 19th. It was dismissed with prejudice. I could hear the room breathing now. 200 people inhaling and exhaling in synchronized silence. Point 4. All family assets, including property accounts and business interests my late wife Dorothea and I built over 43 years of marriage, have been transferred to an irrevocable trust protecting my 9-year-old granddaughter, Simone Calloway. These assets cannot be accessed, controlled, or claimed by anyone except the designated trustee acting in Simone's interest. My voice held flat. Weather report. Grocery list. The absence of anger made every word land harder. Point 5. The commercial warehouse property at Dorothea's Craft Supply, valued at $4.8 million, was sold on October 27th to Apex Industrial Partners. Proceeds were immediately wired to Simone's shielded trust account. My son attempted to sell this property 3 weeks earlier using a forged power of attorney. That sale was blocked. I folded the papers. The sound carried through perfect silence. The ballroom's crystal chandeliers burned steadily overhead, throwing light on 200 faces frozen in the same expression. The look people wear when they understand they are witnessing something that will be repeated in Cincinnati, whispers for decades. These are the facts, I said. Everything I have stated is documented. Copies have been provided to the Ohio Attorney General's office, the FBI, and my attorney, Nadine Holbrook, of Holbrook and Crane Legal. I came here tonight because my son planned to make an announcement about me. I thought you should hear the truth first. I set the microphone flat on the podium. The hollow thunk resonated through the speakers. Darius stood beside me, his mouth opening and closing without sound, his hands trembling. His face had gone ash gray. The man who'd worked this room an hour ago, with easy confidence and expansive handshakes, now looked like someone watching his own execution. That's not. He's confused. This is... His voice cracked, barely audible without the microphone. I descended the stage steps without hurrying, without rushing, just walking, at the same measured pace I'd used going up. The center aisle stretched ahead. 200 frozen faces followed my movement. I recognized Fletcher Adair in the third row, Cecilia Fontaine beside him. Judge Irene Stanhope sat near the back, her expression unreadable. Not one person spoke. Dorothea, I told her silently. I told them everything. Near the exit, Celestine stood with tears moving down her face. her navy gown dark against pale skin. As I passed, she stepped aside. Her voice came in barely a whisper, almost too soft to catch. "I'm sorry." I nodded once and kept walking. Leather on marble, that was the only sound in that corridor. Behind me, the stage held my son like a man pinned in amber, the one who'd tried to strip his father's independence, pillage his granddaughter's inheritance, and erase his mother's name. Now, speechless, before the very crowd he'd spent years courting. I pressed through the ballroom's heavy doors into the hallway. In the last sliver before they closed, I caught a final look at the stage. Darius hadn't moved. 200 of Cincinnati's finest sat without a word, all of them staring at the man whose carefully built world had come undone in 8 minutes. The doors met with a soft thud. The quiet settled over me, the way Dorothea's hands once did. I'd gone 3 steps when the doors swung wide again at my back, and Alistair Drummond's voice reached me. "Mr. Calloway, wait!" I turned. He crossed that silent ballroom with slow, deliberate strides, 200 witnesses tracking every step. His heels struck marble like a judge calling order. On the stage behind him, Darius stood fixed in place, watching his father-in-law close the distance toward the man he'd tried to destroy. Alistair stopped before me and offered his hand. I took it. The grip was firm and intentional, the handshake of a man declaring something publicly. "Mr. Calloway," he said, his voice projecting cleanly through the open doors into the room behind us. "I owe you a genuine apology for failing to properly examine the man who married into my family. That shortcoming is mine alone." He held my hand. 43 years of honest labor, building $4.8 million in assets that demands honest dealing in return. A pause. Then he raised his volume just enough to carry to every corner of that silent room. "The Drummond Group would be deeply honored to explore industrial logistics opportunities with your family trust in the coming fiscal year." I stood in that hotel hallway in my 15-year-old suit, gripping the hand of Cincinnati's most powerful man, while 200 phones went up all at once. "Mr. Drummond, that's more than generous," I said. "I would be honored." 200 glowing screens lit the ballroom dimness like scattered embers, all of them recording the identical image, a billionaire clasping hands with the man his son-in-law had passed off as the household help. Camera shutters layered into something like light rain on a tin roof. By morning, that image would be threading through every node of Cincinnati's business world. Alistair released my hand, gave one nod, and headed back into the ballroom. His eyes never drifted to the stage. He granted Darius's existence no acknowledgement. The dismissal was total. I turned for the exit. "Mr. Calloway." Celestine stood 10 feet away in her navy gown, Simone's hand tight in hers. My granddaughter's eyes were raw. Celestine's mascara had run, carefully touched up, but not fully hidden. "Mr. Calloway, I had absolutely no idea the madness went this deep." Her voice cracked. "I am so deeply sorry." I took her in, this woman who'd accepted her husband's portrait of me for 18 years, who'd assumed I was sitting on wealth I refused to share, who'd signed documents she never examined, trusting a man who'd been forging her name. "You have nothing to apologize for, Celestine," I said quietly. "Just keep this little girl safe." Simone pulled free and ran. She locked both arms around my waist, face pressed hard into my jacket. I held her close and felt her small shoulders trembling. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered. "Everything's okay now." She drew back slightly and looked up at me with Dorothea's eyes. Then she rose on her toes and put her lips beside my ear.
Daddy called you an old bastard. I heard him last month when you left after dinner. I didn't like it when he said that.
Something quenched in my chest. 9 years old, carrying that alone, absorbing her father's ugliness, quietly choosing her allegiance in a conflict no child should have been near. "I know, baby," I said. "I know." Celestine's hand rested briefly on my shoulder. "We're leaving tonight. My father's estate. Simone will be safe there." "Good," I said. "That's good." I kissed Simone's forehead and eased her back to her mother. Celestine took her daughter's hand and moved toward the elevator bank without a backward glance. Not at the ballroom, not at her husband. I held still in that marble corridor for 30 seconds, gathering myself. Motion through the open ballroom doors caught my eye. 3 dark-suited men, Drummond Group Legal, identifiable by their coordinated efficiency, had converged on the stage where Darius stood. They moved him toward a side exit, voices inaudible, but the meaning plain. Not a request, a removal. I made for the main doors. Past the concierge desk, the empty coat check, the unattended lobby bar. The gala behind me was dissolving. People pushed toward exits in tight clusters, trading urgent whispers. The string quartet packed up without a note. Servers worked the abandoned tables, lifting half-full glasses. I pushed through the revolving door into November cold. Cincinnati's skyline rose around me, lit against darkness. I'd left the truck 6 blocks out to skip the valet. I pulled my collar up and walked. Phone buzzed. "Nadine. Saw the video. 6 people already sent it. You okay?" I typed back. "Going home." Another one right behind it. "Conrad, that took guts. Dorothea would be proud." I left that unanswered, kept moving. 6 blocks and I was at the truck. Got in, sat without turning the key for 5 minutes in the cold cab. Dorothea's photograph was in the sun visor where it always rode. I flipped it down and looked at her smile. "I told them," I said to the empty truck. "I told them everything." The photograph gave nothing back. But something inside my chest that had been knotted for 7 years began slowly to ease. Empty streets carried me home. Back at the Hilton Cincinnati Netherland Plaza, Darius Calloway was in the executive lounge, learning that his role with the Drummond Group was terminated effective immediately. His wife was already contacting divorce attorneys. His daughter was in a car bound for her grandfather's estate, with word he was not to reach her. Federal fraud indictments would land Monday morning, but that hadn't reached me yet. I'd learn it all later. What I had was simpler. I'd walked into a room that measured people by money and connections, and I'd told the truth in front of 200 witnesses. A billionaire had shaken my hand. My granddaughter had chosen me. My son's empire had folded in 8 minutes of documented facts, read in a voice that never climbed above weather report. Calm. I parked behind the Hyde Park building, climbed the stairs, worked the lock, stepped inside. Kitchen light still burning from that morning, Dorothea's photograph on the counter. The evidence folder, hollow now, beside the sink. I filled a glass of water, drank it standing, set it in the rack. My phone buzzed again. I left it. Outside, Cincinnati's first snow kept falling. I sat at the kitchen table, the same chair I'd occupied beside Dorothea for 43 years, and let in everything the ballroom hadn't permitted. Exhaustion, relief, grief, peace. Justice finally witnessed. The 4:15 alarm never sounded, and for the first time in 3 years, I came awake on my own, daylight already filling the kitchen window at 7 o'clock. I lay still 30 seconds, disoriented, then remembered I'd switched it off the night before. All 5 of them, the delivery route, the cleaning shift, the plumbing calls, the warehouse rounds, none of it required me this morning. I got up slowly, joints less argumentative than usual. Made coffee the careful way, measuring grounds as Dorothea had shown me. 2 tablespoons a cup, 1 extra for the pot. The kitchen warmed while fresh snow covered the street outside. The phone had sat dark on that counter since the gala. I powered it on. 47 texts, 23 missed calls. Every one from Darius. First message 11:42 p.m., Thanksgiving night. Dad, please. I am so sorry. Can we talk? I need to explain. I set the phone face down. 3 years of 415 alarms. 3 years of 5 jobs. 3 years of every muscle spent, every dollar rationed against Dorothea's medical bills and Darius's betrayals. And now a morning with nowhere to be. I drank my coffee, watched the snow fall, and sat with something absent since Dorothea died. Peace without guilt woven into it. Some apologies arrived too late to matter. December snow gave way to January rain. The rain locked into February ice. 3 months closed like soft doors, each one lighter. My shoulders straightened week by week as the jobs fell away, one farewell at a time. Monday, December 1st, I made the rounds to 4 employers. The delivery company first. Tavian met me in the loading bay, young face composed and reading the moment correctly. When I said I was leaving, he put out his hand. "You earned this, sir," he said. "Earned it the hard way." Then the office tower where I'd run the overnight cleaning. Claudette ran that crew with the care of someone who understood the dignity in the work. 32 years in the trade had given her an unerring sense of who noticed the people around them and who didn't. When I told her I was done, she brought me in for a long hug. "You were the finest person I worked alongside, Gerald," she said. "Don't be a stranger." The weekend, plumbing clients tipped their hats, shook my hand, asked if I could point them toward a replacement. I gave them 3 names, good workers who could use the income. At the Strip District warehouse, Clifford met me at the loading dock with coffee already waiting. "Dock doors stay unlocked if you ever get restless," he said. "But I know you won't be needing us anymore." I held on to exactly 1 job, the night security shift with Conrad. Not for the money, not out of necessity, but because it was my choice. Freedom, I came to understand, isn't about walking away from work. It's about picking your work rather than having necessity pick it for you. March came in with an early warmth. April followed cherry blossoms lining the banks of the Ohio. Nadine called me to her office overlooking the river. She spread documents across her desk the way a prosecutor lays out evidence in a case already decided. "Final accounting," she said. Darius had pleaded guilty to federal bank fraud, 5 years probation, 200 hours of community service, full restitution of $47,000. State charges for elder exploitation, repayment of $180,000 plus interest over 7 years. Forgery carried a 3-year suspended sentence. The guardianship petition was permanently expunged from all records. She slid a chart across the desk. Numbers in tidy columns, legal language reduced to plain arithmetic. "Darius legally owes you $253,600, Nadine said. "You never owed him a single dime." I looked at that chart, court-ordered restitution, neat and final, and thought about Dorothea. She'd never been chasing the money either. She just wanted our family to know the truth. Now, 200 witnesses and the federal court record would carry that truth forward permanently. "The money doesn't matter, Nadine," I said. "Simone's safe. That's what matters." "For the record," Nadine said quietly, "you won completely, every single count." I folded the chart and slid it into my jacket pocket next to Dorothea's photograph. I walked out into the April sunshine, carrying something I couldn't quite find a word for. Not triumph, not vengeance, just completion. April night, 2 a.m., downtown security shift. I sat at the monitoring desk beside Conrad, the 2 of us watching empty hallways drift across silent screens. We'd worked this shift together for 3 years, but the weight of it had shifted entirely. The bone-deep exhaustion was gone. My shoulders felt light. We were here by choice now, not desperation. 2 old men keeping buildings safe because we wanted to, not because a paycheck stood between us and ruin. Then my phone lit up on the desk. A picture message from Simone. She'd painted a warehouse in bright yellow tempera, childlike brushstrokes, bold and full of joy. The caption read, "Grandpa, I'm painting your warehouse. I'm painting it bright yellow because I know it's your favorite color." I smiled. Conrad glanced over, caught sight of the painting, and smiled too. "That kid is going to have a beautiful life," he said. "Yeah," I said. "She is." We sat in easy silence, monitoring screens that showed nothing but empty corridors and locked doors. Outside, Cincinnati slept. Inside, 2 security guards kept watch over buildings that didn't need guarding, doing work that mattered. Not because it was important to the world, but because they'd chosen it for themselves. I thought about Dorothea, about 43 years of marriage built on honesty and hard work. About Darius, who'd tried to take everything we'd built and wound up with nothing but court-ordered debt and a daughter who'd chosen her grandfather instead. About Simone, painting warehouses yellow in her mother's kitchen, shielded by trusts and legal documents, and one stubborn old man who refused to give up. Sometimes you spend a whole lifetime working in the dark, just to arrive at one thing. The things that matter most are never the things the world can see. It's what you manage to hold on to when everything else has been stripped away. I set my phone down, Simone's painting still glowing on the screen. Conrad poured cream into coffee that didn't need it, same as always. The security monitors cycled through quiet lobbies, empty hallways, locked doors. 2 a.m. in Cincinnati, April 2025. An old man at a desk he had no obligation to sit at, watching over buildings that needed no watching, protecting things that couldn't be taken. Dorothea would have understood. I sipped my coffee and kept the watch. And that's where it ends. 2 o'clock in the morning, a cup of coffee, and a painting from a 9-year-old girl glowing on a phone screen. A quiet ending for a fight that was anything but quiet. I've turned this story over in my mind more times than I can count. What it cost wasn't just money or years. It was the version of my son I'd always hoped existed. Losing that is a grief that doesn't announce itself. It settles in slowly. But I believe God doesn't let a good person fight that hard in the dark without eventually bringing them into the light. The Lord's timing was not mine, but it was right. Dorothea knew that. She built her fortress in silence and trusted that the truth would hold. If this story taught me anything worth passing on, it's this. Document everything, always. Not because you expect to be betrayed, but because the truth needs somewhere to stand. If someone pressures you to sign something without giving you time to think, that pressure itself is the warning. The people who love you the most sometimes protect you in ways you won't discover until you need it most. And when family justice finally comes, and it does come, it rarely looks like what you imagined. It looks like a child's painting and an old friend pouring coffee in the dark. If these revenge stories' family themes speak to something you've lived through, or someone you know is in a fight like Gerald's right now, share this with them. Sometimes the most useful thing you can offer a person is the knowledge that someone else came through it. Leave a comment telling me what part of this story hit hardest. I genuinely want to hear from you. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to Silent Sweet Revenge. There are more stories here, and every one of them matters. Thank you for sitting with this one all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next story.